Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Bridgestone Arena, Preds, and Kraken tonight, 7 o'clock, right here, 1025 and 1063, the game. And we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
I got to give a shout out to the Preds. I got to give a big thank you to the Preds. They have stopped by with some wonderful silent auction items for an event that I actually want to tell everybody I'm going to be a part of. So the West End Synagogue, it's where my parents got married back in the day. The West End Synagogue will be having on March 30th, 2025. So that's March 30th, the end of this month. Game day featuring Jared Stillman, an informal night with Jared Stillman. We should have some special guests. There'll be a dinner that's there, and ahead of the draft and ahead of the NCAA or ahead of the Final Four and everything else, we should have a very spirited sports night at the West End Synagogue. So I don't have the website exactly to tell you where to do it because there's a little QR code on the thing, but just search West End Synagogue and it'll come up. If you want to come, you don't have to be Jewish to go. We're very excited. We got some great silent auction items that we're going to have there and a lot more as well. I'll post about it on social media. And I want to thank my friends at the West End Synagogue for having me for that. So again, that is March 30th at 5:30. It's a Sunday. We're going to have, I think, some pretty special guests as well as a part of the event. So I do want to start on the Predators because last night I was taping something with Corey Curtis for News 2. And as we were taping it, or right after we got done, Adam Vingan sent me the tweet from Elliot Friedman saying that the Nashville Predators were shipping off Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn for some guy I have never heard of, Michael Bunting. Ian, you know all these players. Are you familiar with Michael Bunting?
Yeah, he was in the running for Rookie of the Year when he was paired on the same line with Austin Matthews in Toronto.
Ah, that'll do it for you. Mikko Rantanen made a whole career out of that. So last night I saw it. I was talking to Corey on the thing that we were doing for News 2, and I was like, I think I like it. Barry Trotz trades Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn, two completely worthless bums, to the Penguins for some guy I've never heard of. And I'm sure the guy that he traded for, the Michael Bunting that Ian just brought up, I'm sure he's a worthless bum too. I mean, they're not going to trade you Crosby for Tommy Novak. And yet today, last night after the trade, Preds Twitter, Adam Vingan, The Athletic, all these, they're just killing Barry Trotz for this trade. And I'm thinking, getting killed for getting rid of Tommy Novak? Did we not beg on the show yesterday after he scored Tuesday night at Boston? I said, hey, NHL, look, he does that every game. Please come get him. Please take him off my hands because he stinks. For getting rid of 3 seasons at $3.5 million and getting it off the books, getting rid of this slow-footed, just tree of a person in Luke Schenn, just again, worthless. The Predators save about $1.75 million on the cap for next season, and then they get rid of Novak's deal, which had an extra year attached to it, and they picked up a 4th rounder as a part of it, and so they've gotten rid of 2 completely worthless players that have done everything they could to contribute to this terrible season, and you're mad about it? Preds Twitter, Vingan, The Athletic. And I think what hit me was now is not the time to really be getting mad. The time to get mad was when Elliot Friedman was saying this time last year that Tommy Novak could fetch a 1st-round pick if he didn't sign a contract extension. Now, I'm incredibly skeptical that an NHL team actually would have traded a 1st-round pick. But I guess the thing they're saying is he had value. This time last year, as, you know, a kind of offensive skilled center, and they signed Novak to the deal. 3 years, $3.5 million. It was a fine deal. It was a questionable deal because Novak really hadn't proven a whole lot, but it also wasn't this huge commitment of a contract. And then the Vancouver series happened. And it was obvious to me after the Vancouver series, it was obvious to me that Tommy Novak can't play tough, physical, big boy playoff hockey. Like everything that made Mike Fisher, Tommy Novak doesn't have. I think it's fair to say Barry Trotz has had a horrendous season. The free agent acquisitions have stunk. The goalie he signed to that untradeable contract that, again, I wouldn't have signed the goalie to and told Barry Trotz at the time I would not have signed him to, has had a bad year. The defense stinks. Again, they didn't have a second line center. They thought they could do it with Tommy Novak. Again, after the Vancouver series, I knew they couldn't do it with Tommy Novak. I said last year when they signed Stamkos and Marchessault, I said I'd make Colton Sissons the second line center. People say, Colton Sissons, he can't be the second line center. I'm like, well, I know Tommy Novak can't. The coach is on the hot seat, and that's Barry's coach. And there is a lot of surgery that needs to be performed, both in the next 24 hours, because we are 23 hours and 10 minutes away from the trade deadline, but in the next 23 hours and this offseason, they have got to make a shake up the room level hockey trade. Get rid of one of these core guys that every time I'm like, oh, maybe they should trade this guy. It's, oh no, they can't trade him, Jared. Time to trade one of those guys. I vote Marchessault. And I mean, get somebody else in here. You take somebody else's problem that you think you can fix, they take one of your problems. But again, I go back to the Barry Trotz anger about what is Barry Trotz doing? And I've seen it. Dante Fabro waved. What is Barry Trotz doing? Have you seen Dante Fabro play for the Predators? Philip Tomasino sent off to Pittsburgh. What is Barry Trotz doing? Philip Tomasino sucks. He sucks. And if he was so good, Pittsburgh would be having a better season than they're having now. The reality is all of these Barry Trotz in-season moves, the ones that people are crying about, that's him raising his hand and saying, I blew it. That's what these deals are. When he's saying, hey, I signed Alexander Carrier to a new deal, and midway through the first half of the season, it's like, yep, got to get rid of him. That is saying I should not have signed Carrier to that contract. That's why I traded him for that nothing Justin Barron, and then I'm eventually going to get rid of him too. Scott Wedgwood signed to a contract, gone. Tommy Novak, gone. Barry Trotz is admitting that his plan this offseason for this year is not working. It didn't work, and he's pivoting off that. He's not doing what other general managers have done, which is deny it and just say the puck didn't bounce our way. You want to be mad for the bad season? Be my guest. I'm mad about the bad season. Having season tickets really isn't all that exciting this year. I pay $19 a month now to be able to watch the Predators and the Braves, and the stream that FanDuel Sports Network sends down the pipe is crappy and choppy. You think I enjoy that? You want to be mad the goalie stinks? Again, I told Barry Trotz I would not have signed him to the contract. And there's a lot of people out there that think Barry Trotz can't do the job. And you might be right. We're going to see. But being angry today after dumping two worthless players on this team who, again, when it comes to Novak, Novak's going to go to Pittsburgh, score a bunch of meaningless goals, and Pred's Twitter is going to kvetch like there is no tomorrow about it. But Tommy Novak sucks. He's soft. He's not going to get any better, and he's never going to be an impact player in meaningful physical hockey games. Luke Shin, again, a worthless bum. So they got rid of two worthless bums. They added one worthless bum and a fourth-round pick, trade chip, crop dust the draft, whatever. If you're mad today, just like if you were mad about the Nyquist trade, an expiring contract for a guy who wasn't doing anything this year, in exchange for a future second-round pick, if you're complaining about those moves, you're just mad about the bad season they're having. You can't be mad about these moves. And again, Barry Trotz is putting his hand in the air and saying, I blew it. He's not saying, again, the ball didn't bounce our way. He's not saying, oh, no, we've got synergy in the building. We've got that. No, he's saying, I'm blowing this thing up as much as I can, and then I might blow it up more. He comes on the show every week. He will be on the show tomorrow at 3 o'clock after the deadline. He comes on the show every week, and we ask him, you going to fire the coach? And even last week, we really put it out there, asked him everything, talked about how important it'll be to tank. So now we saw the actions of last year. We saw the, hey, let's go get Stamkos. Let's go get Marchessault. Let's go get Brady Shea. And again, why all these guys suck, I do not understand. Because I have seen them play for other teams, and they are good players. This isn't like Matt Duchene, who I think the Predators just made up was a good player. And then he came to the Predators, and when he wasn't as good of a player as they had made up in their head that he was supposed to be, it was kind of like, well, I thought he was this great player. And Adam had said the stats say he's not that good. These guys are good. They have been good in the past. So why is that? I don't exactly know. And is this going to be able to go on forever? No. But this is what bad teams do at the deadline. They get rid of worthless players. They take on a bad contract or two. They add future assets so that the next offseason, they can turn it around. And I don't see how you can be mad about what they're doing right now, unless you're really mad about what they did during the summer. And that's a different discussion. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. See, I have found the silver lining in all of this, as painful as it is. And I do want to get to that next. And this freaking goalie better not mess it up. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to weigh in again, that phone number is 615-737-1025. Live from Brinker, it's Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game.
by making this trade, the Predators free up $1.75 million in cap space. Could you see this move as a precursor to something else between now and the deadline tomorrow afternoon for the Predators?
Yeah, I think so. I think that Barry's open. He's been pretty. He's been pretty open about it. Like everybody knows what he wants to do. So I don't think you guys are done. I don't think you guys are done by any stretch of the imagination. I think you have to be ready for anything.
Do you think that could involve just moving players out, or do you think a young player perhaps could be coming in for the future?
I think honestly, Adam, I think you have to be prepared for anything. I really do. Like, I know that it's a boring answer and you're hoping for something a little more in depth, but like, I got to tell you, I think Barry has indicated that he's not. Look, it's been a disappointing season. Nobody's happy with the way it went down. Like, I'll say this, that one came out of left field. When someone sent me the note that one was happening, I was like, really? Like I was like, that's not one I was expecting. So I just don't know how you can't be prepared for Trotz to do just about anything.
That was Elliot Friedman today on the Midday Show. Again, talking about, hey, Barry Trotz, he can do whatever. He's pissed about this year. Now, I hate when they say things like this, like nobody's happy about it. Barry is not happy about it. Well, it's Barry's job to keep this season from happening. And this season's been an unmitigated disaster. And if next season is like this season and you want to fire Barry Trotz, then fine. Okay. I mean, then I would be worried about the lack of progress. But I am going to talk about the one silver lining that I do feel actually positive about when it comes to this team. And it's not about the trades. Again, I'm glad they got rid of Novak because I think he sucks. And the longer he's on the team, the more they try to tell themselves that he doesn't. But it's not so much the getting rid of Tommy Novak that I really would get excited about. There's not a single move they can make. A couple of years ago when they decided to rebuild and they pulled off that whopper of a Tanner Jeannot trade and they had the Ekholm trade, and I was like, yes. But there's not a single move they can make outside of trading away Jonathan Marchessault for 3 first-rounders that would get me excited. The Predators have been a solid playoff line-ish team for the last 10 years. And I use the last 10 years as an example or as kind of the line of demarcation because that's how long I've been covering the team. Now, I've been a fan of the team for a long time, but I use the last 10 years because, Ian, we're almost at our 10th year anniversaries here at 102.5 The Game.
Almost.
Like a month and a half away, which is crazy. And so I'm going to use the last 10 years. They have been a playoff line-ish team. Some years they're comfortably in the playoffs. Some years they get in by the skin of their teeth. Some years they barely miss the playoffs. This is the first year that I've been covering the team over the last 10 years where they have absolutely sucked. And outside of that crazy stretch in the 2017 playoffs and the 2018 season where Pekka Rinne turned into Martin Brodeur in his prime, again, they've been a playoff line-ish team. Again, they missed the playoffs barely a couple years ago, and they made it barely the year before that. But again, the median is a first-round playoff-ish team. Doesn't matter who the coach is, doesn't matter who the goalie is, doesn't matter who the general manager is, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And they have tried everything to get better than that. They have gone all in. Trading for Ryan Johansson, trading for Kyle Turris, trading guys here, there, picks, etc. PK Subban. They have tried to blow things up on the fly like they did 2 years ago. They tried to go all in free agency twice. The first time when they went and got Matt Duchene, the second time with Stamkos, Marchessault, and Brady Shea. And none of it has actively worked. And the one thing that hasn't happened throughout the last 10 years, the one thing that in 2023 I was begging for, when they got swept by the Avalanche and really got their freaking fannies kicked, I said they got to blow it up and be bad. They have to be bad. They have not bottomed out, and they have not received a top pick in the draft. You want to know how you get Connor McDavid? how you get Austin Matthews, how you get Alexander Barkov, Nathan McKinnon. You suck. That's how you get them. And I know, Buffalo stunk for a while, and Chicago stunk for a while, and San Jose stunk for a while, and Anaheim stunk for a while, and all these teams have stunk, and they've had high picks. I know. But at the same time, I still think that the bones of this team, like the players on it, are better than they've played this year. And I think that they'll go out and realize, we can't go into the year just winging it at second line center the way the Titans were winging it at right tackle. So we'll have to go get somebody that can play second line center. We'll have to go get some better players on defense and not just call up these Scarbini bums from Milwaukee. Like, we'll have to do a couple of things here and there. But that's why the fact that they actually are bottoming out this year is why, even though I'm disappointed in the season, because again, I thought they were going to be contenders, I actually don't think it's the worst thing in the world, because I've thought for a while that this team really needs to get that big boy forward. So I'm actually hopeful that by getting rid of the dead weight like Tommy Novak, who only shows up when you don't need him to, getting rid of Gus Nyquist, and just replacing them with losers. Like, they just claimed some guys off waivers. Let's see. Jakob Vrana and Jordan Osterley. Osterley. I hope they stink. Put them in there. In fact, send them to Milwaukee and put up some more guys who stink. Like, I would send those guys to Milwaukee because they play in the NHL. Call up guys from Milwaukee that stink.
They did. Well, I don't know about stink, but they called up Ozzy Weisblatt today.
I'm sure he sucks. Put him in. That's what I want. That's what they've got to lose. Because what they've got right now is they've got a team of older veteran players who, again, it's a concern that they have not played well. But the fact that they have all not played well gives me hope that it's probably the coach, and you can fire him and get a new coach in here, and that those guys will play back up to their median levels, if not better than that, but certainly not as bad as they've played this year. And then you've opened up some cap space by getting rid of Luke Shin's contract for next year and getting rid of Tommy Novak's contract for the next 2 years. And so now you can add a player or two in free agency, maybe trade for somebody. Plus, they will add James Higgins or Michael Misa. Again, apparently there are 3 players at the top of this draft that are legit. So you have to get one of the top 3 picks. And apparently it doesn't matter because one of the guys is a defenseman. And supposedly if you end up with pick 1 and San Jose ends up with pick 3, then San Jose will trade with you to get the defenseman. So I'm going to accept this horrible season, and I'm okay with it if they get that dude. Now, if the draft lottery porks them, then everyone's going to probably end up getting fired. And the one person that can stand in the way of this is Saros. Because I've noticed that, like Tommy Novak, Saros seems to love playing his best when it doesn't matter. And I'm starting to get a little worried about that. But I again, these guys, Higgins, Misa, give me one of these guys. Go add a couple of free agents because they'll have the cap space. And I actually think that that young player might be the transcendent player the Predators are looking for. And I don't think they'll be as bad forever as Chicago or San Jose, because I don't think the bones of their team suck as bad. And they're going to fire the coach. And I do think that, again, I like Andrew Burnett. I think he's a good coach. I think someone has to pay the price for this year. I think it's him. And they probably need to get more of an older coach who plays more of an older game. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phone. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. And maybe I'm a homer. I don't know. But I actually am a little optimistic about where this is headed. And I'll explain why. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
everybody's got difficult decisions to make. Now, where I think it's really coming under scrutiny now is the moves that Barry Trotz has made since the season started. Like, I don't think anybody could really begrudge him other than to say, look, the center was, I think he would tell you, the center wasn't there in the free agency that was worth the buy. There's a guy playing tonight for the Kraken, Chandler Stevenson, who the Kraken overpaid to get. And that was just what you had to do to get somebody like that. There weren't great centers out there. So that was maybe what Barry Trotz would have liked to have done. But that was kind of steep. And then you had Stamkos and Marchessault saying, I want to come to Nashville. So that would, I can't begrudge him for that, even though that in retrospect, it doesn't look good.
That was Willie today. And I got to say this, it's bad when Willie and I, it's either bad when Willie and I have the same opinion, or it means it's absolutely the right opinion because Willie and I never agree about anything. Like anything. And I agree with Willie. Again, I'm not mad about the moves that have been made during the season. The moves during the season are Barry Trotz raising his hand in the air and saying, I screwed up. Now, this may sound like a homer take from me, but this is how I feel. I looked it up today. Apparently, this Puckapedia is the new cap friendly.
That's right.
So the Predators have $17 million in cap space for next year, and that's if they don't get rid of anybody else. What I'd really love is for them to get rid of this Michael Bunting. But if they don't get rid of anybody else, they have $17 million in cap space for next season, and they have the Nyquist contract and the Johansson contract coming off the books as far as the retention is concerned, so they could retain another deal or something like that. Which, by the way, they really could use some clarification from the NHL about what the deal with the Johansson contract is, because if the NHL were to come down the pipe today and they were to say, hey, the Johansson contract is void, and the Predators could then take a bad contract as a facilitator on a deal between now and tomorrow, though I'm not holding my breath. But they have $17 million in cap space for next season. That's probably 4 players. And again, that's if they don't get rid of McCarron, and if they don't get rid of Sissons, and if they don't get rid of these other guys who I don't care about. They have 5 picks in the top 2 rounds, including 3 in the first round, one of which should end up, again, fingers crossed, a top 3 pick. So next year, they should have a team of O'Reilly at center, Svechkov, whomever you want in the 4th line, don't care. But then Hagens or Misa, who they will use a top 3 pick on. Bang, there you go. Maybe add somebody else, whatever. Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, Evangelista's having a down year. They got the Kimmel kid, Schaefer kid. They got all these kids down there they like. Call a couple of them up on the wing. I expect Tanner Mollendijk will be on the team full-time next year. And a new coach. And I can actually get a little excited about next season. And if next season is the same as this season, then blow it up. And if next season is the same as this season, then we can start talking Barry Trotz. And quite frankly, I'd probably be on your side, which would be on, okay, this is not working. But for right now, I actually am a little optimistic about next season. Specifically because I want to go draft a big boy center. And there's 2 of them. And apparently San Jose, if they end up with one of those picks, they're taking the defenseman anyway. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caleb says, Michael Bunting has a career high of 63 points. Yes, Ian, he is a bum. Again, I don't care if this guy ever plays for the Predators. Like Adam Vingan was texting me today, all bitching about Trotz, talking about, this guy, he just had an appendectomy, and then sent me a link as if I wasn't aware of the fact that when you say he has an appendectomy, I got it. He had an appendectomy. It was about getting rid of Novak and getting rid of Schenn. And the amount of people that blown up my phone about getting rid of Schenn, holy crap, shouldn't you guys be throwing a parade today? One texter says, trade Saros before they're stuck with his ass for 8 more years. Done. Like, that's not changing. I wish it would change. Unfortunately, it's not. And you're not the only ones that have done this. Boston signed Jeremy Swayman to this huge contract, and Jeremy Swayman has been terrible this year. To me, it's just, I just don't, and this was why I was against signing Soros from the jump. I just don't believe in that position very much. Like, who's the best goalie in the game outside of Hellebuck? And even Connor Hellebuck's team never wins in the playoffs. I just don't think it matters. You're winning cups with Darcy Kemper and Aiden Hill. Who was the goalie when Colorado came in here and swept the Predators? Pavel Francouz? Pavel Francois? Whatever. I don't know. Let's go to Jerry, who's up next here on the program. Jerry, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jared. The thing that concerns me is the scouting, because we've been a franchise for over 20-something years now, and we've never been able to draft somebody and develop a forward who could score. You would think, after 20-something years, we'd at least get one who could have scored.
I agree.
Develop. And it's like, what's that say about our scouting? I mean, I know most of those years under David Poole, but even with Trotz, we're just, when we went to a youth movement a couple of years ago under John Hines, and almost none of those players are with us anymore. They've all been traded off. So what's that tell you about our scouting?
I completely agree with you about the Predators' inability to draft a young forward and develop them. And that's the one thing that I guess I really didn't like about David Poile handing over the infrastructure to Barry Trotz, which is why I wanted kind of a more up-and-coming guy to be the general manager of the Predators. I wanted like a fresh, new outlook. And I was fine with Trotz when they put him in and Poile rode off into the sunset because, no disrespect, but it was time for a change. It wasn't Poile. That said, at some point, don't you think they would have hit on like a third-round pick over 25 years that would have been a good forward? Or would have hit on a first-round? It doesn't have to be a high first-round pick. Because, again, the Predators, for the most part, haven't been lousy enough to get those high first-round picks. But wouldn't they at some point have hit on somebody offensively?
Well, you could argue maybe, not necessarily all with the Preds, but Fiala was a first-round pick. He got paid elsewhere, like a high forward. He's not elite. Forsberg, they didn't draft, but they had him pretty much.
Forsberg doesn't count because they didn't draft him.
Yeah, but they had him, after the year after he got drafted. But yeah.
If the best we can go with is Fiala, that tells you something. Like, Fiala's fine.
Yeah, Colin Wilson was a was a first round pick. That didn't work. Then they went Ellis and Seth Jones on D.
Tolvanen, Tomasino.
Tolvanen was at the end.
All these freaking Scarbinis that they've drafted over the last couple of years in the first and second rounds. Jimmy Vesey. All these guys kind of stink. Like, it's just, at some point, aren't they gonna, because I do look at the Dallas Stars, and I'm like, what are the Dallas Stars doing differently from me? Like, because the Dallas Stars seem to draft all these guys out of their tushies every time. It's like, I watch the Dallas Stars every year, and I'm like, how the hell did they get this guy? And it's okay when it's Miro Heiskanen, and it's like, well, they took him third in the draft. Got it. But how'd they get Jason Robertson? He was a second-round pick. How did they get Logan Stankoven or whatever his name is? He's freaking good. Who's the other one they have? They got two young guys that are freaking ballers. I'm like, where are they getting these guys from? They called up the AHL's leading scorer last year, who was a former first-round pick that they had the luxury in Dallas of keeping down there because they have so many good forwards. They called him up, Maverick Rowan or what? They called him up for Game 7 last year. I'm like, where the hell is Dallas just crapping out all of these good forwards, and I can't get anybody?
They just have to win. They haven't won much in the playoffs yet.
Well,
either,
but here's what I'm worried about when it comes to the Predators too. I'm worried about the fact that they've added a bunch of picks and they've added a bunch of prospects over the last couple of years. But if you go to The Athletic and you look at the prospect gurus and how they rank them, they do not have any of their prospects in an elite category. The best is the Edstrom kid, who they acquired in the Askarov trade. And he's a center, so maybe he comes into play, but he hasn't even played professional North American hockey. But all these guys they've drafted, Matthew Wood, not viewed as an elite prospect, at least not by the prospect gurus. Tanner Mullendijk, Andrew Gibson, Igor Surin, the guys that Barry Trotz comes on the show, and Barry's like, we got Gibson. And I'm like, they say Gibson might be a third pair defenseman in the NHL. So that's where I look at Higgins and Misa, and then I'm like, okay, that's how you get that big boy. Right there. But I will say this. I expect them to be good next year. And if they're not, then we're going to have much tougher conversations. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Again, if you want to weigh in at 615-737-1025. So yesterday, we talked a lot about the Paul Kaharski report. And the Paul Kaharski report was that the Tennessee Titans are not interested in Sam Darnold at his price. If they can get a deal, they'll take it, but they're not okay. But coming up next, there's another newsworthy nugget that Paul just kind of dropped in there yesterday that I actually think is pretty important and also tells us how much they really feel, how they really, really, truly feel about Cam Ward. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune into 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders will take on Liberty at the Murphy Center. Tip-off is at 6:30. Pregame is at 6. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. And let me tell all the fine folks out there, this week's Nashville's best deal is from Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. See why Brewster's is a scoop above the rest with the best ice cream shakes, sundae splits, blasts, and more. Visit theGameNashville.com/deals now and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last.
Chad said he'd like to see 30 draft picks in the next 3 years, 12 in the top 100. How realistic is it to get those picks, and how difficult will it be?
It's certainly it's possible, yeah, to do that. Like I said, we just have to have discipline in the draft as we're going through the process. Draft picks are our biggest form of currency. So when there's opportunities to trade back to collect more picks, we're going to do that. So that's always the goal, to try to get as many picks in the top 100 as you can.
Yeah, Paul, I think it's very important to note that draft picks are very important. No duh. But yesterday we were talking a lot about PK and PK's reporting. PK went to the combine, and I think we got to get a new nickname for PK. Should call him BNN, the Brinker News Network. Because PK, he was on the outs there. Vrabel got fired. He and Rand didn't see eye to eye. Then he did a little sit down with Brinker at the owners' meetings. And after that, PK, boom, he was back in there like swimwear. And so PK goes to the combine, and he comes out with all these little nuggets. And the one that yesterday I could not bring my head around to how stupid it is the fact that the Titans aren't interested in Sam Darnold. But there was another little nugget PK just threw out there yesterday on the Robbie and Rexroad program. And I'm not sure anybody picked up on it, but I think it is very important. So Paul was talking about trading back in the first pick, and here's what PK said.
It's Cam Ward at 1. It's a trade out. And here's the thing. I don't think they want to trade that pick without getting a first rounder back. I know they don't. Now, so if you can't get a 1 out of the Giants, then you may be more willing to go to 6 or 7 than I thought.
Okay.
But they got to get a 1 out of the Giants. And the reports seem to be that the Giants really want to get to 1. So if they really want to get to 1,
there's a price to be paid.
Drop your first round.
He's telling you the Titans' asking price for the number 1 pick in this year's draft is your number 1 and your number 1 next year. Now, that tells us a couple of things. Number 1, what's it going to take for the Giants to get from 3 to 1? Your number 1 next year. Now, again, this isn't necessarily where I would be. I would be, by the way, at this point in the game, asking for next year's number 1. I covet next year's number 1 too. So I would be asking for next year's number 1 pick if I were the Titans. Now, I would ultimately accept 34 from the Giants if that was what helped get the deal done, or 33 or whatever it is they have. I think the Giants have 33 and they have 34. The Browns have 33. So I would take 34, as part. Now, again, you have to give me 3 and then, throw something else in there too. But I would take 34. But again, I would absolutely want next year's first. But I think it tells us a couple of things. Number 1, Jets, you want to move up? We start with next year's first. Raiders, you want to move up? It starts with next year's first. That is newsworthy in and of itself. Now, let's put that to the side for a second. Number 2, it probably means they don't love Cam Ward. Because you could have called the Chicago Bears last year and offered next year's 1 from 7 where you sat and said, hey, we'll give you 7 in next year's 1, and they would have said no thank you. There is not a single thing you could have offered. You could not have offered 3 first-round picks to move from 7 to number 1 to draft Caleb Williams. Washington got a couple of calls for Jaden Daniels, and they said, yeah, we're not really, taking calls on this. And on Hard Knocks, the offseason Hard Knocks, which will live in infamy and will never happen again because it was so good and exposed the Giants for how stupid they really are. John Mara and Joe Shane agreed to deal the 2025 first-round pick to the Patriots to move from 6 to 3. So they were willing to give up Malik Neighbors and their first-round pick in this year's draft to move up to 3 to draft Drake May, and New England said no. So Tennessee is saying, hey, we'll trade Cam Ward for your first-rounder next year. New England said no for Drake May. If you loved Cam Ward, if the decision was we're going with Cam Ward, period, then it would be a lot more than just your first-rounder next year in order to get him. So I think that this tells us two things. Number one, the Titans are absolutely interested in dealing the number one pick, though that's not a surprise. But what the real asking price is, your first rounder next year. So you have to trade back. So you have to give me 7, you have to give me 6, you have to give me 3, and you have to give me your first rounder next year. That's the asking price. And then I'm sure the Titans want back in the third round, so you'll probably have to, like the Jets have 2 third-rounders. I think they have like 76 and 97, or throw them 97, deal's done, probably. But the real tell is they clearly don't like Cam Ward that much. Because if they did like Cam Ward that much, then they wouldn't already have what their asking price is. And again, if you think you're sitting on a franchise quarterback, it costs a lot more than one extra first-round pick to move up and get him. So what does that tell you? The Titans are telling you they don't like the quarterbacks in free agency this year. They don't like the quarterbacks in the draft. And they just are going to punt on 2025. And the other thing I would say about the first rounders for next year, and I think that this isn't just a football thing. I see this in hockey too. Because it used to be at the trade deadline in hockey, guys were trading away first round picks like candy. I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but last year, Barry Trotz told me, he said, everybody used to trade first rounders for rentals. Remember when you traded a first rounder for Ryan Hartman or a first rounder for Santorelli and Cody Frazier? Like
Franson,
whatever. Scarbini. Now it's like, no, those are second rounders in the NHL, and first rounders go for real big time players. And I think the NFL is kind of doing the same thing. I think the draft has become so popular that these teams don't want to deal those future first round picks because they want to give their fans something to be excited about. Their owners want to have the optimism of their first round picks. Did you know that every single team has a first round draft choice in this year's draft? Every single NFL team. Not a single team has dealt their first rounder. Is it not crazy? Keyshawn Johnson went for 2 first round picks 20 years ago from the Jets to the Buccaneers. John Gruden went for 2 first rounders. I mean, the Patriots had this bloodlust for Mike Vrabel, and they wouldn't trade a first rounder for him. So I think the values of the picks have gone up. Probably some of that has to do with the money the players now make and with the collective bargaining agreements and how they're all kind of slotted 5-year contracts. I think that might have something to do with it. But I also think the popularity of the draft is now putting more of an emphasis on the value of the pick. At the same time, we now know what the asking price is. They want a first rounder next year. And we also know at the same time that they don't like Cam Ward that much because they're willing to take today from the Giants the deal that New England turned down for Drake May last year. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So we always do our free agency plan when it comes to the Titans. And if you've listened to this show at all, you know that my free agency plan when it comes to the Titans would be a lot different than what it appears their free agency plan is going to be. And it hit me today how I know I'm right. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. We are at Bridgestone Arena where the Predators take on the Seattle Kraken tonight right here, 7 o'clock on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. I have to address something in the YouTube chat because, again, the last segment we played the cut of Paul saying that if you want to trade with the Titans for the first overall pick, you have to give up next year's first rounder. That's what they're looking for. So, Giants, you want the number 1 pick for Cam Ward, drop your first rounder next year, and it's yours. And people in the YouTube chat are like, so wait a minute. How did you get that they don't love Cam Ward from that? Because if they loved Cam Ward, they wouldn't be interested in trading the pick for Cam Ward. They'd be interested in taking Cam Ward. The Bengals had the first pick in 2020. The Dolphins coveted at number 5, Joe Burrow. They wanted Joe Burrow. They called. The Bengals said, nope, click. If you're picking up the phone and you're like, hey, here's what it'll take for you to get Cam Ward, then you don't love Cam Ward. Let's pick up the phone. Call Kansas City. Ask them what it'll take to get Mahomes. Click. If you love the quarterback, you take the quarterback, period. That's why people are like, well, but Jared, the Commanders with Jaden Daniels last year, they did this, and we can do that with Cam Ward, except for the fact that Cam Ward is not Jaden Daniels. He does not profile the way that Jaden Daniels profiled last year. And I don't understand how you can't understand that. So, for me, tomorrow we will do our Titans official free agency preview plan. It's the one day of the year where we pretend that the salary cap matters. But the real number we're going to care about is $280 million. Because I believe, Ian, the salary cap is set at $279 million or so.
279.5 or something like that.
Something like that. And
0.2,
so
yeah.
Spend $280 million. We all know you can spend over the cap. We all know the cap's fake. But last year, I think they spent like $250 million. Well, you know what? Spend $280 million this year. And I was thinking long and hard about this, about what I'm going to do as far as the free agency plan. And it sounds like Sam Darnold is out as far as the Titans are concerned because they're not interested. And I'm like, so should I do the free agency plan saying, hey, I would go after Sam Darnold, but let's do it like the Titans are going to not. And I realized, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because I know I'm right about this. And I'm going to tell you how I know that I'm right. Because the fans absolutely freaking hate this move. And every time over the last handful of years, there's a move that I like. Not a move that, hey, they make it and I accept it, but a move that I truly like. And the fans hate it. I'm right. Every freaking time. There's a move the Titans make. I say, oh, no. And the fans are like, no, Jared, you don't understand. And every single time that happens, I'm right. John Robinson got fired at 7-5 in first place. And again, the Titans' reasoning was, well, Amy just wasn't happy. And the fans, yeah, Amy put her foot down. She showed them. And I said, oh, no. My team is one of the stupid teams. Oh, no. But the fans loved it. Yeah, he traded A.J. Brown. Oh! Okay. Number 2, the guard with the 11th overall pick. When they took him, I went nuts. I could not believe it. Ian, I don't even think I could make the sound that I made in bitching about them taking a guard with the 11th overall pick a couple years ago.
On draft night?
Oh, man.
Those are always the best shows.
The fans loved it. The fans were like, Jared, he's going to be the next Bruce Matthews. You'll see. Jared, he is plug and play. He's going to be so good. You'll see, Jared.
Well, the draft gurus were telling us that.
And then we watched, and even that's not good enough. Plug and play is not good enough to be the 11th pick. And I kept watching it, and I'm like, this guy kind of sucks. No, Jared, you don't understand. He had an appendectomy, Jared. You don't get it. You don't. Training camp last year, I'm like, he's getting worked by these guys from Seattle I've never heard of. But Brian Callahan said good things about him in the press conference. So they were like, you're a hater, Jared. You don't understand. And by week 4, it was like, oh, my God, he sucks. The right tackle with the 7th pick to play left tackle. Right then and there, that was the moment that I said, I can't wait till Rand gets fired. And again, I all off season, I kept looking at the right tackle position, and I kept thinking, what are they going to do about this? And the fans, they said, well, I trust Bill Callahan more than I trust you, Jared. And Bill Callahan and Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker, who was a part of the bullcrap last year, their plan was for Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
to be the right tackle. And I said, you can't do it. He can't play right tackle. And you all kept telling me, Bill Callahan knows better than you. And by week 2, you knew that was a problem. And then there were L'Jarius Sneed's knees. The entire league said, nah, we're not doing the knees. Minnesota had a better offer on the table and pulled it when they heard about the knees. And you guys kept saying, but Jared, L'Jarius Sneed didn't miss any games in Kansas City. I said, this is a degenerative knee issue. This is not about the past. This is about the future. This is about what he will do. And the entire NFL, including Kansas City, is saying, we don't want him. And you guys said, let Rand cook, baby. I thought, oh, God. And remember, L'Jarius Sneed said, Titan fans, you have nothing to worry about with L'Jarius Sneed's knees. I'll never forget it. He played 5 games this past year, and then they made up a quad injury that didn't really happen. It was a knee injury, and they just didn't want to say it because they didn't want to get all the crap that they would get.
Titans fans, I'm here to tell you that you don't have anything to worry about from L'Jarius Sneed knee.
Nothing to worry about. This time last year, I was arguing that if Joe Alt's off the board, which I didn't think would happen, but if Joe Alt was off the board, they needed to take Brock Bowers. But Jared, we don't need a tight end. And on draft night, I had my phone turned. I said, Bowers. They took J.C. Latham. You'll see, Jared. Bill Callahan loves him. And I turned over my phone, and I had a former NFL head coach who had texted me while the Titans were on the clock, who said, take the tight end. He's going to the Hall of Fame. And in a year, Brock Bowers has set an NFL record and is already an AP first-team All-Pro. I'm not perfect. But at the same time, and if I was general manager, I'd get things wrong too. But the one time that I know I'm right about something is when my eyes tell me, and every Titan fan on Twitter thinks the exact opposite. I don't understand what it is about lying to yourself about what your eyes tell you, but there is something Titan fans they love to do. And every time there is this huge dichotomy where it's not just a little disagreement, like the Rand Carthon era. I said, if Rand Carthon wins a Super Bowl, I'll be the first person to put my hand in the air and say, I was wrong. When Terry Bradshaw hands him the trophy, he can say, F you, Jared Stillman, and I will say, salute to you, Rand Carthon. But I knew Rand Carthon couldn't do this job. I knew it. And he couldn't. And you guys kept saying, let Rand cook. So every time I vehemently believe in something, I mean vehemently believe in it, and you guys tell me, oh, Jared, you don't understand L'Jarius Sneed's knees. You don't get it. I'm always right when it comes to that. You want to know another time I was right? Last year, when I kept saying, Sam Darnold's good, folks. Oh, Sam Darnold, he sucks. My guy, Sam Darnold's good. This was before he won 14 games, threw for 4,300 yards, 35 touchdowns, went to the playoffs. I know I'm right about this. And I don't know where he's going to go, and I don't know what's going to happen to him, and I don't know but I know he's better than anything this team could do at quarterback. I know it. He's better than Mac Jones. He's better than Daniel Jones. He's better than Cam Ward. He's better than these guys. But just like when you guys wanted to run PT out there and Legarius needs knees and let Rand cook and the guard with the 11th overall pick, I guess you'll all have to just figure out the hard one. 615-737-1025. I will have a lot of anger pointed in the direction of Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi and whomever when what PK says might happen happens and they don't get Sam Darnold because they're just looking for the deal. And I do wonder, I do wonder how much of this would be their fault. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
So you expect then
I expect it's going to be
Levis on the team.
Yes.
And you expect that it's either
it's a stopgap
type. So they're not going to draft
guy.
a QB. You don't believe they're going to draft a guy either.
I don't believe they're going to draft a late guy. I think if
are they going to draft Cam Ward?
They might draft Cam Ward. They don't know yet if they're drafting Cam Ward. So they might draft Cam Ward, and all of this is moot. If they don't draft Cam Ward, I don't think they're drafting a later guy. I think if they did draft a later guy, it would be McCord.
Okay, there you go. That was PK yesterday saying like they're not going to sign Sam Darnold. They would only be interested in Sam Darnold if the money was significantly less than the $40 million a year when it comes to the expected market. So if it was more like $30 million a year, they'd have interest. But no. We're looking at Will Levis returning at quarterback next year, and we're looking at Jameis Winston or Mac Jones as examples, according to Paul. And I was starting to think about this when I'm starting to put together how much money the Titans are going to spend this offseason. And I'm starting to wonder if Amy is really a bigger problem than we are aware of. You know, when it comes to Amy, we know that she is irrational. When it comes to Amy, we know that she doesn't know anything about football. When it comes to Amy, now I like Amy. I do. And I think she's got a good heart, and that matters to me. And I've always talked about the way she treated Floyd at the end, and that's important. But the results speak for themselves. The way she has handled this team over the last 3 years has been truly disastrous. So much so that I think even she is taking a step back because she has effed up so much. And yet, we hear about Amy getting mad about the team not being good. But is Amy going to pay for a football team to be good this year? Did Amy get mad last year about having the 21st highest payroll in the NFL and said no more? And that's why the Titans are out on Sam Darnold when their general manager comes from Kansas City, the team that had the first overall pick in a bad quarterback draft and overpaid for Alex Smith. And now they're not interested in this year's Alex Smith. They have no interest in him. Well, they'll have interest at a certain price, but not to outbid the market. Like, did Amy get mad last year about spending the money on L'Jarius Sneed and his terrible knees and spending $8 million on day one for a running back while letting Derrick Henry walk out the door, having the 21st payroll in the NFL, and Amy said, no more. And now the Titans have to go cheap? Because according to Spot Track, the Titans have $181.2 million committed in cash for next year. And that is before getting rid of Harold Landry and his $17.5 million. So $181 million. And really, it's more than that. It's more like 160 something million because, again, they're going to get rid of Landry's 17.5. The cap. Now, again, the cap's all phony baloney anyways, and there's dead hits that carry over, and but again, the money, the cap is $279.2 million. So let's round down and round up. The Titans have $180 million committed in cash for this season, again, before Landry, and there's $280 million that they should be able to spend. That's $100 million in difference. Are they really going to spend $100 million in free agency this offseason? Are they really going to spend $70 million in offseason? It's like, no, we cannot pay $40 for the quarterback because we're going to spend $100 million and we got to have this much allocated for this spot. We're going to have this much allocated for that spot. We're going to have. And if that's the case, why are they not in on Joe Thuney? Why are they not making some of these trades ahead of the release dates and the new league year and everything? Why aren't they interested in any of that? So you mean to tell me that the Titans fired Rand Carthon, demonized free agency, have $100 million, again, to get up to the phony baloney cap in terms of cash, and they're going to spend it? And you know what the answer is. The answer is no. They're going to have like the 28th payroll in the NFL this year. And Amy's going to say, or Amy's not going to say anything, but the Titans are going to say, well, it was just tough. We just didn't have the money. We just didn't have the resources. We're just trying to build the team. We're trying to draft, develop, and retain. I agree with draft, develop, and retain. But when you can sign a quarterback who's 28 years old, just won 14 games, you get the quarterback. Again, let's take $30 million for the draft. Let's take $40 million just to be nice. Are they really going to spend $60 million? Really $80 million when you factor in the Landry money. Are they going to spend that money this year in free agency? And it's starting to make me think that Amy is starting to act like Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft and the Bengals, who are like, no. No, we're not going to spend that money. Do you know how much money Jacksonville has committed for next season? Jacksonville has $264 million committed for next year. You have $181 million. They're spending $80 million as of today. They are spending $80 million more on their team. Joe Burrow gets it. That's why he's so pissed off at the Bengals and is calling them out publicly. When Joe Burrow says things like, the Eagles have figured it out. They pay everyone. They pay their quarterback. They pay their running back. They pay their 2 tackles. They pay their 2 receivers. They pay their tight end. They pay their defense. The Eagles pay everybody. I wonder why that is. Oh, and you know what the Eagles also do? The Eagles win. You get what you pay for in life. So when it comes to the Titans and this idea that, oh man, we could pay $30 million for Sam Darnold, but we cannot, under any circumstances, pay $40 million for Sam Darnold. We just could not afford it. How could we afford Sam Darnold, the extra $10 million, when again, you're $100 million away from the cap number? I'm trying to figure this out. Is it the new stadium? Even though she's getting the biggest handout ever in terms of help for the new stadium? Is it that the team has just decided we're going to tank? And we're just not going to tell the fans that because the fans already hate us. So if we tell them we're going to tank, they're going to go nuts. So we are going to tank, but we're just not going to tell them. I mean, and I don't even know who you're tanking for. There's no good quarterbacks as of now in next year's class. But the one thing that I'm not interested in, which I feel is inevitable, I am not interested in giving up in 2025 the way I had to give up on 2024. Last year, I went to the Bahamas right before training camp. And I got an infection in my leg and I went to the hospital. And so my dad, I was in my parents' house after I got back. My dad was like, you should probably go to the hospital with that. I was like, So he's like, I'll take it. So we go to the hospital. And the doctor, is working on the infection or whatever. And the doctor's like, Jared, how are we going to be this year? And I was like, doctor, we're going to be bad. And he said, what? And my dad's sitting there. He goes, really? I said, well, you know the right tackle story, right? I said, I know exactly what Floyd said. I know exactly what he meant. And this team does not have a right tackle. Like, I know fans will try to convince themselves that PT can do it, but no, they don't have a right tackle. And I knew. When Malik Willis walked in week 3 and took the bone out of your rear end, that was the last game I went to this year, by the way. We have season tickets. That was the last game that I went to. When that happened, I knew. All right, season's over. And if this team's not going to spend any money and this team's going to roll Jameis Winston out there at quarterback next year, then all right, let's start talking about 2026. Let's start talking about who Amy's going to fire after this year. Because even though she won't spend the money for them to go get a real quarterback, she'll let them go get Jameis Winston. And so let's start worrying about 2026 because 2025's over. If they're going to be this cheap about it. Well, we'd like Sam Darnold at $30 million, but we wouldn't like Sam Darnold at $40 million. You got $180 million committed. Oh, hey, you just got rid of Arden Key. There you go. There's the difference. Now go get Sam Darnold. Nope, can't do it. Amy won't let you. I also heard Paul talking today, and Paul was like, they would be interested on a 1 or a 2 year deal, but not like a 3 or a 4 year deal. I'm like, all these deals are freaking 1 and 2 year deals. You can get out of them whenever you want. If the Broncos can get out of the Russell Wilson deal, you can get out of any deal you want to. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number on the program, 615-737-1025. So I've talked about Mike Borgonzi and the fact that Mike Borgonzi is Mr. Kansas City. And what Kansas City did was they traded 2 second-round picks for Alex Smith, paid Alex Smith a bunch of money, and they built their team around it, and I promise you he doesn't regret it. Neither do they. But there's another quarterback and another team that I'm kind of circling saying, hold on, wait a minute. You're not interested in Sam Darnold, but your team will pay this guy? We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
But I do believe if you have a good process, if you have a really good process, especially a scouting process, that you have a chance. If you have the quarterback, you have a chance. Ron Wolf used to say this in Green Bay. I've heard it. It's been ingrained in me from day one, is if you don't have a quarterback, a high-level one, forget about it. Don't make any plans that you're going to the Super Bowl anytime soon. So that's just the way I was trained. I know it's been done with average to above average quarterbacks. If you have a 85 Bears defense or the Baltimore Ravens defense when they won it, you can do it.
That was Chad Brinker on the Titans official podcast back when Chad Brinker did interviews. That was Chad Brinker talking about the way I was raised in Green Bay. Can we run that cut back again one more time? I love it because,
But I do believe if you have a good process, if you have a really good process, especially a scouting process, that you have a chance. If you have the quarterback, you have a chance. Ron Wolf used to say this in Green Bay. I've heard it. It's been ingrained in me from day one, is if you don't have a quarterback, a high-level one, forget about it. Don't make any plans that you're going to the Super Bowl anytime soon.
So right there, Chad Brinker says, the way we learned in Green Bay, the great Green Bay, was you better have a quarterback. And so, that's the way we do things in Green Bay. So let's talk about Chad Brinker's beloved Green Bay Packers. The team that when you walk into his bedroom, you see the Green Bay Packer bed sheet off the NFL shop catalog. I believe that's what Chad Brinker sleeps under at night. Jordan Love is their starting quarterback. And he had made 18 career starts when the Packers gave him $55 million a season. This last year, Jordan Love had 16 big-time throws, according to Pro Football Focus. Sam Darnold had 33. Jordan Love had a big-time throw percentage of 3.5. Sam Darnold, 5.6. Well, Sam Darnold was awful in the playoffs, Jared. Jordan Love had a playoff quarterback rating of 41.5. Sam Darnold had a playoff rating of 77.6. Jordan Love has never made the Pro Bowl. Jordan Love has never been top 10 in the league's MVP voting, and Sam Darnold has done both. Sam Darnold had a passing grade, according to PFF last year, of 80.3. Jordan Love had a passing grade of 76.6. And it should be noted for the record that Sam Darnold's Vikings, with Sam Darnold at quarterback, beat Jordan Love's Packers twice. So what am I missing? Well, Sam Darnold's only had one good year, Jared. So did Jordan Love. They won 9 regular season games. He ended up with 4 years and $220 million. The great Green Bay Packers, the can do no wrong Green Bay Packers, according to Chad Brinker. The way I was raised, the way we're going to do things, the Green Bay, they're paying $55 million for a quarterback who has won just as many games over the last 3 seasons as Sam Darnold has. Sam Darnold has won 18 games over the last 3 seasons. Jordan Love has won 18 games over the last 3 seasons. But Jared, he only had one good year. So did Jordan Love. Jordan Love had one good year, and he got $220 million. And here's what's crazy. Again, I'm not asking you to give Sam Darnold $55 million. I'm asking you to give Sam Darnold 40. I'm asking you to give Sam Darnold 73% of what the beloved Green Bay Packers are giving their quarterback. But that's crazy. I don't get it. Jordan Love's so good. How many Pro Bowls he's been to? 0. And that ain't, Drake May has been to the Pro Bowl. Mac Jones has been to the Pro Bowl. How many top 10 MVP finishes? 0. $55 million a year. Again, you guys will tell me Sam Darnold stunk in that last playoff game. He was so bad in that playoff game, Jared. Again, Sam Darnold threw for 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and had a quarterback rating of 77.6. Jordan Love versus the Eagles threw 3 interceptions, had a quarterback rating of 41.5 against the Eagles. Justin Herbert against the Texans threw 1 touchdown, 4 picks, and had a quarterback rating of 40.9. Jared Goff had a quarterback rating of 49.7 against the Commanders. Kyler Murray in the only, because $46 million for Kyler's good. He never wins anything. They've been to the playoffs one time. He played in 1 playoff game. He had no touchdowns, 2 picks, and a quarterback rating of 40.9. Tua has been to 1 playoff game. He makes $53 million a year. Tua in 1 playoff game, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, quarterback rating of 63.9. All of those are worse than Sam Darnold's performance against the Rams. But again, these guys average $52.2 million a year. But I can't give Sam Darnold 40? Explain that one to me, Chad Brinker. Pull out the AI analytic cancer curing model that led you to L'Jarius Sneed last year, and you tell me how your beloved Green Bay Packers can pay a quarterback $55 million a year who had 1 good season and it had 16 big-time throws compared to Sam Darnold's 33 last year, who had a quarterback rating in the playoffs of 41.5. You tell me. Because apparently I'm too stupid to understand this stuff. I don't know. 615-737-1025. Alex from Nashville says, Jared, you've been more right than you've been wrong in the last 2 years, and I love it. And you know what the thing that's crazy about all this is? This isn't like the little nitty-gritty stuff where it's like, okay, I see what they're thinking, but I disagree with it because I like this player a little bit more than that player. It's like this big, giant, basic, borderline, obvious stuff. Like, you know you need a right tackle, right? But Jared, PT will do it. No, he won't. He didn't do it last year, and he wasn't very good the year before that. No, it'll be fine. Just like common sense stuff. That's what I've been right about. Rand Carthon goes out there and goes and gets an injured corner. Yeah, the knees. We played a cut of a Kansas City host being like, I know you guys will say the knees aren't that bad. Trust me, the knees are that bad. The radio host in Kansas City said that before they traded for him. This is common sense stuff. Like, and to me, this is common sense stuff. Sam Darnold is a 28-year-old starting quarterback in the NFL. He is a top 15 quarterback in the league. Cam Ward ain't. Right now, today, you can, for $40 million, get a top 15 quarterback in the league. And the Titans, the freaking Titans, who ran Will Levis out there last year and lost to Mac Jones twice. The Titans are like, nah, we're too good for that. Again, this is common sense stuff. Tyler says, someone explain to me why they are getting rid of Landry. You don't start to make the team better for a 28-year-old pass rusher that's good for 9 sacks a season. I mean, I do think Landry's kind of washed a little bit. I mean, Landry should take a pay cut. Landry should take a pay cut to about $9 million or something like that. And even then it's probably a little overpay because he just doesn't produce enough. That is the least of my worries, is the Landry stuff. LD from McMinnville says the difference is Jordan Love was drafted and is a homegrown quarterback. Sam Darnold is someone else's leftovers. So? So? Who cares? Like, did the New Orleans Saints care that they didn't draft Drew Brees? Do you realize how stupid that is? Well, you know, the reason that you can pay $55 million for Tua and Trevor Lawrence and all these other guys, Kyler, and the reason Jordan Love, the reason you can pay all this money is because they drafted them. They drafted him. So it's okay to pay $55 million for the same or worse quarterback, but we don't want this guy because another team had him and it didn't work. Excuse me? And the thing that's crazy is, I think that's exactly what happened. I think the reason that the Green Bay Packers jumped the gun and gave Jordan Love the contract was not that they had to give Jordan Love the contract. The reason the Jags gave Trevor Lawrence the contract was not that they had to give Trevor Lawrence the contract. The reason they gave him the contract is because they looked at it and they were like, that's our guy. We drafted him. We developed him. Like, to the Packers, this is their brand. We went from Brett to Aaron, and now we're going from Aaron to Jordan, and we found another franchise quarterback, so let's pay him like a franchise quarterback because that's our brand. Again, he's not better than Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was bad in the playoffs last year. Yeah, well, he wasn't worse than Jordan Love. Had a quarterback rating of 41.5 against the Eagles. Woo, great job, Jordan Love. Unbelievable. But hey, they drafted him, so they can go ahead and pay him more money. I don't get it. I do not understand that line of thinking. More of your phone, 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 1025 and 1063 The Game.
I think it's an easy decision for me because I don't have time. Just given the current climate of the NFL and how we fire coaches every year, we fired 10 coaches in the first year in the last 10 years.
Yeah, Brian almost didn't make it out of this year.
So so if I'm that guy, do I really want to draft a young quarterback that I'm not quite sure about, okay, and roll for 24 months and lose a lot of games and go through the turmoil and the struggles and the adversity and maybe lose my job? Or am I going to bring in somebody who's already been through that, who's already been through the fires, and who's a little bit more refined, a little bit more prepared, a little bit more ready? So to me, it's either Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones. Out of the guys you gave me, that's my choices. Make a decision. It's one or the other. That's it. So I'm not going down. Mac Jones doesn't work for me. Justin Fields doesn't work for me. It ain't going to work for Brian Callahan or Bill either. It's between those two guys. There's your answer.
It ain't going to work for Brian Callahan, and it ain't going to work for Bill either. I love it. Rich Gannon at the Super Bowl. Let's go to phones as promised. Danny is waiting patiently and is up next here on the program. Danny, thank you for calling. Go ahead. Danny, go. Okay, call us back.
Hear me?
Yep, go.
Wait. Can you hear me?
Yep,
right.
go.
Hey, so I just want to agree with you. I think that your take on the Sam Darnold front is totally accurate. What doesn't make sense to me is how I know PK is accurate in his reporting, but it just doesn't make sense that Sam Darnold wouldn't be the choice, or even Cam Ward would be the choice. If Amy doesn't allow to go to the max cap space for next season, then it just proves that she wants the season to be tanked. Because if you're not paying the players, if you're not paying for a good team like the other teams are, that just proves to me that you don't care enough to actually put in the effort to win. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I appreciate the call. I do wonder if the new stadium is part of the problem. That, again, they have to pay some money on the new stadium. They would never say this because it would look so bad. That they're getting $1.2 billion in public money, plus they're getting PSL money, plus they're getting NFL money, to then say, yeah, the 5% that we have to actually pay out of our own pockets for this stadium, which we're going to make $1 gazillion on, we can't afford. But it also wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not ruling it out. Because, again, when you're sitting there and you're telling me that, oh, no, we can go to $30 million for Sam Darnold, but we can't go to $40 million. We can't pay $1 more for a top 15 to, again, a tier 2 quarterback. He's not Lamar. He's not Mahomes. He's not Allen. He's not Burrow. He's not Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud or even Justin Herbert. He's not those guys, and I'll never say he is. But all the other guys, like these people are like, well, if he's on a good team, he'll be good. Name me a quarterback who's on a bad team who's good. Burrow? Like, other than that, he's only got the 2 best receivers. Other than that, who? Tua's got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Dak Prescott's got CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. What are we talking about? I mean, Trevor Lawrence had Christian Kirk. Now they've traded him, but Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas Jr. The one guy who has nobody around him right now is Justin Herbert. He's the one guy that's got nobody around him and can still freaking throw the ball down the field. One texter says, Sam Darnold is much likely to have a better year in Minnesota last year than for the Titans this upcoming year. I assume the Vikings have a better offensive line, wide receivers, maybe running back, and an established offensive-minded coach. The Titans for now are likely worse on all fronts, except maybe same at running back. I guess the Titans front office isn't willing to pay $40 million a year for a decent at best quarterback. Again, the going rate for a decent quarterback is $50 million. Jordan Love. Would anybody say Jordan Love is a tier 1 quarterback? No. Jared Goff. Would anybody say Jared Goff is a tier 1 quarterback? No. Kyler Murray. Ian, would you say Kyler Murray is a tier 1 quarterback?
No.
Tua. Is Tua a tier 1 quarterback?
No.
Trevor Lawrence. Is Trevor Lawrence a tier 1 quarterback?
Can't say so.
Dak Prescott. Is Dak Prescott a tier 1 quarterback?
Probably not tier 1.
Okay, those guys average 55 million. I'm asking for 40. You're like, well, maybe the Titans front office doesn't think that 40 million a year is good enough for that. Well, the rest of the league thinks it's 55. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I understand fans that have this approach of like, I either want Mahomes or I want to be the worst team in the league. Now, you'll bitch during the season when the team sucks. But I do not get how we can look at, again, I'm asking for $40 million. They're saying they'll pay 30. I'm asking for $40 million for something that costs 55. Sam Darnold's performance last year. And I'm not expecting him to replicate a 14-win season with the Titans. But Sam Darnold's performance last year is worth $60 million in the NFL. One texter says, you have a strong opinion on Sam Darnold. And I'm not saying that I disagree, but I'm curious, have you ever had a strong take on something and ended up being wrong? If the Titans pay him big money and he flops, I hope you'll own it. I enjoy the show. I would say the thing that I had the strongest opinion on that hasn't worked out is Anthony Richardson with the Colts. But the context with my belief in Anthony Richardson was you had to develop him a certain way. And I've talked about the core values that I have when it comes to building a football team, and they're rooted from Floyd, who drafted Steve McNair and sat him on the bench and brought him along slowly. And that's what you had to do with Richardson, and the Colts have done the opposite. Like, again, I would have never played Anthony Richardson as a rookie. I would have announced that we're not playing Anthony Richardson as a rookie. And right then and there, Indianapolis drafted him. Again, I would have drafted him and like Andy Reid did, ran to the podium and said, Patrick Mahomes is not playing his rookie year. I would have done that in Indianapolis, and they ran to the podium and said, we're going to put Anthony in right away and say, F it. Why not? And so, I mean, I don't even get what they're doing now with this competition thing. They're going to try to bring a quarterback. I don't. But yeah, that's the one. 615-737-1025. TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. We'll get to that next. Live from Bridgestone Arena at Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, Bridgestone Arena, Preds, and Kraken tonight. Right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. And TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. Teron Davenport from ESPN. TD, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm great, man. No bad days. You know what I mean?
I had a bad day yesterday.
No bad days is the motto, man.
I had a bad day. I read
What
your
happened?
story at ESPN, and I heard PK on the morning show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, your guy, man.
Dimming my hopes on the Sam Darnold Titans front.
No 14 in Nashville.
So let's start with that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you just point blank. Are the Titans being stupid at quarterback? What's going on here?
I don't want to say stupid. They're being risky. And I think when you look, the bottom line, there are two rookie quarterbacks that I feel that you could draft at number one. And I think that either one of those guys could lead your franchise now and in the future. That's just me. Now, as far as the Darnold thing is concerned, yeah, I think they're kind of playing with fire in that if you want the dude, get him. You know what I mean? But my whole thing is, so the whole $30 million, like that's kind of like the cap where they'll stop. They don't believe he's a $40 to $45 million player. And it makes sense, right? Because you look at 30 million to 40, 45, the difference, as we talked about yesterday, is 2-3 players.
Sure.
Is Sam Darnold good enough to make up for not having 2 or 3 players that you feel can help the team? I don't think so. Apparently the Titans don't either. But my thing is, why even be in on a guy if you don't believe that he's good enough to do all that? So that's where the risk is concerned. You look at some of the veterans, you know, Kaharski brought up Jameis Winston. That is a name that I heard in Indy, and that's one to consider. Look, I know he throws a lot of interceptions, but he throws a lot of touchdowns too. So you do have to consider that. But end of the day, if the Giants, Jets, and Raiders should trade up to get Cam or Shador, why shouldn't the Titans just take Cam or Shador at number one?
So I guess on the front, when I look at the Winston thing, is, you know, Sam had an opportunity to be a starting quarterback this past year with Minnesota. I mean, I truly believe that had J.J. McCarthy stayed healthy, they probably would have made J.J. McCarthy the quarterback.
Yes.
Just because when you draft the guy, you know, there's but whether it was a lucky break or whatever, he got the opportunity and he made the most of it. Jameis has had opportunities since he left Tampa Bay to be a starting quarterback and is yet to really run with it.
I'm not saying Jameis and Darnold are the same. And I'll say a lot of guys are better than Sam Darnold, but I won't say Jameis is. Those are two different scenarios. If you get Jameis, right, you draft him, you assign him, you draft Cam or Shador, and you have him there just in case those guys aren't ready opening day. I got the Mets on my mind for the season opener, right?
Sure.
But if you sign Darnold, now you're looking more towards the Mike Bergonzi, Kansas City Chiefs, Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes model. And we talked about how there's similarities. The whole question is just, okay, is Darnold the guy that in 2 years can when they get Marcel Reese? Is he the guy? I'm joking, but is he the guy in 2 years that could actually help mold that quarterback, knowing that quarterback's going to take his job very soon?
So I guess my biggest issue with this is, to your original point, which is talking about that $30 million cap. Who the hell do the Titans think they are to sit there and say, like, hey, we'll only pay $30 million for this quarterback that won 14 games last year and threw for 4,300 yards and, you know, all this. Look, man, you got to play ball by our rules.
You know what they say about stats? They're like bikinis. They show a lot, but not everything. So you can run those numbers out there.
I agree. But at the same time, Sam Darnold had a good season. He had a good season.
There's no denying that. And I think Sam Darnold is a good quarterback, but not a $45 to $50 million quarterback.
But again, like Tua is a $50 million quarterback. Jared Goff is a $55 million quarterback. And Kyler is a $46 million quarterback.
We talked about this. I think Kyler is a better, more proven quarterback than Sam Darnold.
How?
Because he's had more solid seasons.
Kyler's had one Pro Bowl appearance, same as Sam Darnold.
I mean, Snoop had a Pro Bowl appearance. So
Kyler has never finished in the top 10 of the MVP. Darnold has.
Okay.
Kyler last year had, Kyler's been in one playoff game.
Body of work.
But again, Kyler's had one playoff game, and he had a quarterback rating of 40.9 in it. The big knock on Darnold is the one playoff game. He was awful.
No, that one playoff game isn't the only knock. It's that Lions game also for the NFC North. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem. Here's the point. Whether you're talking Kyler Murray, you're talking Sam Darnold, you're talking to me, that's splitting hairs.
Sure.
The bottom line,
QBs.
exactly. The bottom line is none of these guys are quarterbacks I would pay $45 to $50 million for.
But my thing is the going rate for a tier 2 quarterback right now in the NFL, whether like my dad, every time I tell him one of these guys signs a contract, is like, they're paying these players too much money. And I'm like, well, if they're not paying the players the money, then the owners are keeping the money. So what do you know, the going rate for a tier 2 quarterback in the NFL is $50 million right now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the going rate for a Chevy Camaro is like $35,000. That doesn't mean I'm going to go get one. I'm going to stick with the C8.
But
just because that's the going rate doesn't mean that you have to go get it.
But my point is, who the hell are the Titans to say we are better than paying the going rate for a tier 2 quarterback?
We're better. They're not saying we're better. See, this is where you got it wrong. They're not saying we're better. They're saying, hey, look, we're not in a state where we could pay a guy $50 million and not be able to add player X, Y, and Z. This guy that wants 45 or whatever the money is that he wants is not a guy that can make us. Now, I'm not saying us, like, understand, I'm speaking from the Titans' perspective. They're not feeling that he's a guy that can make them better alone. He's a part of a formula, right? And,
sure.
And so you can't sign Sam Darnold for $50 million and then go out, whether the cap is real or not. The money is being spent. The money is real. So you can't sign him for $50 million and then go out and get, you know, if you want to go sign whoever it should be, Morgan Moses, who is going to be on their radar. Let's say you saw the talk today about the safety, right? The $15 million. You're not going to sign.
Why am I buying a safety when I don't have a quarterback?
Listen to what I'm saying. You could draft a quarterback in Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders and sign that safety, Javon Holland. But with you have Darnold, and pay him that money, you're sacrificing other parts that you could build. It's not a matter of the Titans saying we're too good. It's a matter of saying we're not good enough to add just a quarterback. That's what it is.
So that's the point I think you're hitting on, which is the money. Because, again, the cap number, you know, forget about the dead money here and all that stuff. The money that the league is saying you can spend is $280 million cash. Now, you and I both know that if you want to spend $330, you can.
Yeah.
If you want to spend less, you can. Yeah. And they right now are at $181 million. That's before they get rid of Harold Landry, who's 17 and a half. You're telling me that they can't afford a $40 million quarterback and the other stuff?
Again, if it's not the cap, it's the spending itself.
That's my point.
So I'm not saying they can't afford it. I'm saying it doesn't seem like they want to do that. It doesn't seem like that's in the formula. And again, it's not just saying, hey, Javon Holland or Sam Darnold. It's not saying that because there's multiple pieces. Who knows if they're going to be on Josh Sweat? Now, I don't pay Josh Sweat $20 million a year, but who knows if they do that? Who knows if they're going to be in on whoever it may be? You know what I mean? We don't know. But when you look at the whole piece of the pie itself, that piece that Darnold takes is too big of a piece of a pie for them to be able to feel like they could build the things that they have to build.
So this is a question I asked Willie today because Willie was like, well, they need to go find their own Baker Mayfield or find their own Sam Darnold.
I think Baker Mayfield and Sam, and we kind of had a little back and forth earlier.
Sure.
They're the same thing to me.
Right. Tier 2 quarterbacks. You have a good team, Baker can quarterback them. You have a terrible team, Baker will lose games. But I guess the bigger point I'm making is, like Willie said, they need to go get their own they need to get their own reclamation project and then become a good player.
Why?
My thing is, let's say you sign Mac Jones, and Mac Jones has a good year. Or you sign Jameis Winston, and Jameis Winston has a good year. And when you look at the free agent boards, green is good. Blue is like just a regular thing. Red's bad.
Boy,
look at Mac Jones and Kirk Cousins.
You like Rain Man with all these charts,
man. But look at Kirk Cousins and Mac. There's no green on there, baby.
Yeah,
they suck.
Yeah.
But so let's say they do that. Let's say they sign Mac Jones, and Mac Jones does have the reclamation project year. What if? Well, now you have to pay him. Like now you have to pay him the money that you say you won't pay Sam Darnold. You have to pay him that money now. Now, I'm not saying you, but I'm talking about you, the Titans.
Next year you have to pay him. But the thing that makes you more willing to pay him is, hey, you know what? He did this for us in this scheme that we have. Not in a perfect situation with Justin Jefferson, the second best receiver in the game, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, and Aaron Jones, and good old O'Connell calling the plays. That's an ideal situation.
Sure, but that team was 7-10 the year before.
I get it. But what I'm saying is that's an ideal situation. So you're taking an ideal situation, the results, and projecting that into your situation that's not real, versus having a guy there. Let's say, heaven forbid, they sign Mac Jones and he does play well. You're like, okay, well, he did well for me. I know that there's a fit because he showed that there's a fit. It's a much more apples to apples than apples to oranges. That's the whole problem with the whole free agency thing. When you're signing another team's free agent, it's all projection. But in the case of quarterbacks, it's a high cost projection. And now you're looking at, okay, man, this thing doesn't go right. You're saddled. Look at the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not giving him like the fully guaranteed.
No, but even still, look at the Vikings the Falcons with Kirk Cousins. There's look at remember the Seahawks, they signed Matt Flynn, right? And then Russell Wilson came in and he balled out, and they're like, hey, Matt Flynn, you got to go. Look at the Bills, Rob Johnson, right, from the Jaguars. We could go on and on and on. There's Scott Mitchell going to the Lions from the Dolphins. If you make a mistake, it will set you back. Now, granted, Scott Mitchell was solid.
Yeah, there were some games with Scott Mitchell.
But that money that they paid him at the time, I don't know that was commensurate with the results that he produced.
I just look at it like this, which is Darnold's a starting quarterback in this league. You don't have a starting quarterback. There you go.
But that doesn't mean you have to go and buy it. You still have the draft. You have the number one pick in the draft. The number one pick. Cam, I put Cam in. I told you this a long time ago.
Sure.
I felt Shador was right up there with any of the quarterbacks over the last couple years. Cam Ward as well. You got a chance on one of these guys. They're easily, in my opinion, top 8 quarterbacks over the last 2 years. Both of them.
Okay, so hold that because I want to pick up right there on the quarterbacks, because the way you have felt about this quarterback class the entire time is different than the way that the gurus and everything else have thought about it. So I want your thoughts on that. We'll do it next. TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
it does sound like in the interviews, Cam Ward has been, I would say, exactly what the teams hoped. Does seem, based on the conversations I've had with general managers, top evaluators, that it is Cam Ward right now and everyone else. I'm not saying he's going to go number one, but it does seem, as it stands now, that if a quarterback goes number one, it is likely him, knowing that we haven't seen him do anything at the Senior Bowl, didn't see him do anything here. His pro day obviously looms large. After that, there's some questions, though. I mean, Shedeur Sanders seems like he acquitted himself well in interviews this week, too. His overall knowledge was good. He, of course, has talked about the change in culture. He's had 2 different places, certainly in contention to be QB2, but I'm not sure that we are there yet. Jackson Dart and press teams as well threw really nicely behind us. Quinn Ewers wasn't asked to do a ton in college. I know teams were sort of like wondering why. You can see the way he threw out there today. He's got the arm talent. He's also got the confidence, maybe a little more of a quiet guy, but got the confidence. It seems to me to be more up in the air as far as who is QB2, who is QB3, and that process is going to shake out over the next couple weeks. Wouldn't be surprised to see another in the top 5. Wouldn't be surprised to see another there in the top 10. Still a long way to go.
That was Ian Rappaport at the Combine saying Cam Ward clear number 1, Shedeur Sanders not clear number 2. Didi, you were at the Combine. Your thoughts on kind of the movement of the quarterbacks over the last week or so? Again, Cam Ward didn't throw a pass. Shedeur Sanders didn't throw a pass. Your thoughts?
That's the thing that really kills me. And that's even like the Matthew Golden is now number 1 receiver. If he wasn't in your top 3 before, I don't know what you were doing.
I do love Matthew Golden.
Yeah. He's
but that's because when I would watch Texas play, like he played, he played well, and he
had 400 yards the last month of the season. But I mean, when you look at these guys, this always happens, and we're talking about it on the break. Like you have that one guy that always gets elevated, and they tried multiple times. Like they tried with Nussmeier, then they tried with Allard, then they tried with
Carson Beck.
Carson Beck, he was the first one.
Milroe after the Georgia game.
Yeah, after the Georgia game, Milroe, and then Dart has been the flavor of the month. But let me say this: Jackson Dart was dealing at the Combine. It didn't change where I rank him, but it made me like him a little more. And you look at the deep in breaking, he was throwing that, leading the receiver. 50-yard handoffs, you know what I mean, down the field. Like, he looked good. But this whole thing about shit. So, tell me this. Are you arrogant or cocky if you shake everybody's hand after the interview and you thank them for taking the time to talk to you? Is that arrogant or cocky?
Well, I can't. I can't tell you what he was in these interviews because I wasn't there.
I could tell you.
And I haven't talked to the coaches, and I haven't.
I can tell you, and that's not from the Titans. It's from a different team. Are you arrogant or cocky if you're supposed to just do a quick 2-minute yada, 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 but it turns into a 10-minute, and after that you say, hey, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. Shake, handshake, and hug to every. Is that arrogant or cocky? Because here's the thing. If Will Howard does that, oh, my God, this guy he is. But see, if it was Shedeur Howard, it would be a whole different story. I don't know what it is that Deion Sanders has done to some of these people, but they literally hate Shedeur just because of Deion. And I'm not talking out my neck when I say that, because there's multiple times where I've sat media people. I say, look, man, what is it about Shedeur that his dad tried to suspend Cordell. What the hell does that have to do with Shedeur Sanders? What does it have to do with him? And to me, like, I know people are like, man, this dude is always trying to big up Shedeur. I'm not always trying to big up Shedeur. I'm just sick and tired of the unnecessary trash being thrown on his name when, in fact, it's not even warranted. So to me, it's like, you got to balance that stuff out. I think he's a good player. Does he have to stop scrambling backwards? Yes. Does he have to process a little bit quicker and get rid of the ball at times? Yes. Does he have to, be a little bit of a better athlete at times? Yes. But give me, other than Andrew Luck in the last 10 to 15 years, give me the perfect prospect. You can't.
Sure. So I guess the way I would look at it is when it comes to Shedeur, the only thing that I saw is I listened to him do his NFL radio interview with Solomon Wilcots and Charles Davis, and I was really impressed. Mm-hmm. He told a story because Charles asked him about, what kind of was his focus on being a leader at Jackson State and at Colorado. And he told a story about Jackson State before NIL money. He paid to take all the guys out. They went out to Houston. They went to Miami. They went throwing. They spent time together, and he paid for it. And he said, look, I was in a position with my father being who he was that I could afford to do that, but I knew I wasn't getting paid back. And then he said, and I didn't make a big deal about it because I wanted to be genuine. I didn't want it to be for attention. I didn't want it to be. And I felt like when Will Levis took those guys to Cabo, it was kind of like Will Levis was not doing it for the cameras, but Will Levis was doing it because that's what he thought a quarterback is supposed to do. I'm trying to be the quarterback, so I'm going to. And I feel like with Shedeur, it's like he did it, but he didn't talk about it. And I found that to be very impressive. I thought the whole interview was very impressive. I listened to it with probably a negative attitude of Shedeur going into it. I was impressed. I'm also not going to say that he wasn't arrogant in these meetings or brash or whatever with these teams.
You have
because
to
I
have
wasn't
a degree
there.
of that, though.
Sure.
What leader?
Yeah.
What leader?
For sure.
Do you know of that doesn't have a touch of arrogance or brashness?
The other thing I was going to say,
you can't lead people if you're not arrogant and brash.
The other thing I was going to say is, like, there may be a chance that a team's doing this on purpose. There may be a chance that the Raiders like him at 7, and so the Raiders say, "Hey, we met with him. God, what an a-hole! Don't draft him." Or the Titans.
There's one quarterback in this draft that's endorsed by Tom Brady. One. You know what it is?
Well, he hasn't been asked to on the other quarterbacks, but I know what you're saying.
Tom Brady has come out and spoken on one quarterback.
But we're going to see if Tom Brady's really all in on Shedeur when time comes. But I guess my point is I just don't know. And I feel like everybody's now picking a side on the Shedeur thing one way or another. And I'm just like, I think it's all possible.
And it's crazy because not only is everybody picking a side on the Shedeur thing, but they're picking a side on, like, you can't like Shedeur and Cam. You can't like both players. Why can't you like both players? That's the thing, that because the way that they're pitted against each other is crazy. That's why I really liked how they were at the podium, where they didn't take shots. Hey, look, man, like, we're training together. We do this together. And I feel I'm the best quarterback because boom, boom, but not because I could do this and Shedeur can't do. You know what I mean? I respect that competition that they're having, but it's a fair competition. It's not, I'm going to put one person down to put myself up.
When you brought up Jackson Dart, there is one thing I've been thinking about in my head a lot since Jackson Dart had the performance he had at the Combine, which was, I believe Patrick Mahomes got dinged by either the gurus, because it sounds like the way that it went down with the league was Andy Reid, Bill O'Brien, and Sean Payton were all in trying to get Mahomes, and that's why they jumped the Texans and jumped in order to do it. And so I do kind of feel like the thing with Mahomes was, well, everybody puts up 9,000 yards a game in that air raid system. So that's why
and that's a legitimate concern.
And I'm wondering with Jackson Dart, if everyone was kind of like, well, everybody in the Lane Kiffin offense throws to wide open receivers, and Blake Sims was good in the Lane Kiffin offense. And I wonder if that's a thing with Dart.
I think Jackson Dart's going to be a good quarterback. Now, is he going to be the difference maker? No, but I think he's going to be a good quarterback.
The one thing I think is crazy is this Tyler Shuck talk, because I watched every game that he played this year, and I have an appreciation for Tyler Shuck as a college quarterback. And I think he can be an NFL quarterback as a backup. I think he's a backup. And I think he's a good backup. Like a Chad Henne plays for 15 years, and you hope he never plays in a meaningful game. But this first round talk?
No, stop it. Stop that. I think there's 3 first-round guys. You know what I mean? And I think Dart is going to get into the first round just because of the quarterback value that's placed on him.
Did you see Charles Davis's mock draft yesterday?
No.
Shedeur Sanders 1 to the Titans. Shedeur Sanders 1, Cam Ward 2, Jackson Dart 3.
You know what? He made that to start conversation.
Look, man.
Hey,
maybe Charles Davis. I saw this and I really like Charles, and I saw this and I was like, is Charles Davis a dope?
No, Charles Davis is doing a good job of making people talk. That's what that is.
TD is with us. The trade talk about moving down. What are we hearing? What are we thinking? We'll get to that next. But there's one thing that I just cannot accept. We'll get to that next with TD. Stillman and Company, 105 The Game.
it's Cam Ward at 1. It's a trade out. And here's the thing. I don't think they want to trade that pick without getting a first rounder back. I know they don't. Now, so if you can't get a 1 out of the Giants, then you may be more willing to go to 6 or 7 than I thought.
Okay.
But they got to get a 1 out of the Giants. And the reports seem to be that the Giants really want to get to 1. So if they really want to get to 1,
there's a price to be paid.
Drop your first round.
There you go. That was Paul yesterday. I found that little nugget fascinating. Do you believe that it's as simple as, hey, they really, really, really want a 1 in next year's class in order to make the deal to move back and essentially give up on Cam Ward?
Right. It's going to take a lot for them to give up on Cam, Shador, whoever it may be.
But last year, the Giants tried to call New England the day of the draft, offer their 1 next year, and New England said no because they were like, no, we're going to take Drake May.
Yeah, they were stuck on Drake May. Yeah.
So I have a thesis. You know I'm in on Sam Darnold. If you're not in on Darnold, then you're taking Ward. To me, it's binary. It is Darnold or it is Ward.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the Titans, because it does feel like they're pretty active of trying to move back here. The Titans aren't truly committed to either guy. And then I'm like, okay, well, so are they tanking the season? Like, what do they know that I don't know?
You know, I think they could like Cam, but they want to see how much value could be placed on him by other teams, I think. And honestly, if you feel Cam is your quarterback, like, why do you have to say it now? You know what I mean? Why not play the cards? You know what I mean? Why not see, okay, what will a team be willing to do? Because you know what happens, right? After free agency, there's only so many chairs that can be filled, right?
Sure.
And so when the musical chairs start and that 1 is left with nobody, to sit down, that team could become desperate. And we know the Giants are kind of like, look, Aaron Rodgers or trade up, or maybe even both. So you could catch a team desperate and boom.
I guess the way I'm looking at it is, then if you do that, then who's your quarterback? So if you're out on Darnold and you trade away Ward, who's your quarterback? And that's
the issue.
This is the problem that I'm running into, which is I feel like the Titans, to me, it is binary. It is, you are in position to either have Cam Ward be your quarterback or Sam Darnold. If I was making the choice, I would choose Sam Darnold over Cam Ward, just because with Cam, I see the talent and that off balance, just so fluid off platform throws that he can make. That has the potential to be special. That has the real potential there. But with Darnold, the seasoning for me with Darnold is everybody else had to live through those problems. The teething, the bringing him up as a baby. With Cam, I'd have to live through that, and I wouldn't have the extra benefits of trading the pick, which I would get if I signed Darnold. But if you were the Titans and you said, okay, we're taking Cam Ward, we're rolling with him. Got it. You think, but it sounds like they don't feel that way about him because they really are entertaining the idea of trading back. Whereas like people called Washington last year and Washington was like, yeah, man, we're taking Jaden Daniels. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts here.
Yeah, I don't know enough to say they're committed to either way. I think they're just playing the field and just seeing how this thing plays out with the understanding that, hey, you know what, worst case scenario, we should go ahead and draft Cam and we rock out and do what we do. You know, if they get into a situation where it's no Darnold, it's no Cam, fans ain't going to hear it. And I don't think Brian Callahan wants to hear it either, but Levis. And now here's the thing. Though. If you look at this, right, let's say they don't get the future quarterback. They rock out with Levis, right? And they have a bad season. Callahan gets fired. Levis has 1 year left. The clock starts on Borgonzi, but then they go and get their coach. And now you get the coach and the quarterback, and now you could be synced up the way everybody wants them to be. So that's another thing you have to look at that might be in their equation.
I think that is crazy risky to do that with Amy Adams-Strunk as the owner.
It is very risky.
And not only that, we were talking about this off air. I believe if they somehow talk themselves into running it back with Levis next year, the fans will not hold that against Brian Callahan.
Nope.
That the fans will hold that against Brinker. They will hold that against Borgonzi. They will hold that against Amy. And they will look at Brian Callahan as almost, I don't want to say a martyr, but they will look at Brian Callahan. And Brian Callahan has got a lot of proving to do as a coach. But they will look at Brian Callahan as a sacrificial lamb who's gotten done wrong.
Yeah. No, without a doubt.
And so I do not think they can run it back with Levis.
I wouldn't do it.
Nobody would do it. Again, I think you and I both agree. And I know you like Shedeur, so that adds an extra element to it. But I think you and I agree. Like, you're either taking the quarterback and that's your quarterback, or you're signing Sam Darnold.
Look, if they pick at 1, it's Cam. Like, if they sit and pick and they go quarterback, it's Cam. Like, we're not even going to debate that. I like Shedeur better as a fit, but it's Cam.
So you would agree with me that, again, it's either – I said this yesterday at the top of the show after PK put out there that they were not going to be interested in Darnold, which was your options to me at quarterback are Darnold, Ward, suck.
I'm curious to see if any veterans shake free. I'm curious.
Like a Carr or that kind of veteran, or like again, Jameis Winston.
Anything from Jameis to Carr to Russell Wilson to whatever it may be.
So this reminds me of the 2020 offseason. And remember that there was a big kind of musical quarterback chair thing where we knew that Cincinnati was going to take Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew the Dolphins were going to take a quarterback. And we knew the Chargers were going to take a quarterback.
Yep.
And then outside of that, there was Phillip Rivers, and there was Ryan Tannehill, and there was Tom Brady, and there was Jameis Winston, and there was Mariota, and there was Andy Dalton, and there were all these guys that we knew some of them were going to end up backups and some of them weren't. And the Patriots lose Tom Brady, and they don't draft anybody. And they just sit out there with Jarrett Stidham for like 4 months, and then the day before training camp, sign Cam Newton. And it was like, what the hell are you doing at quarterback? But Bill Belichick at the time was kind of given this cachet of, hey, Bill knows. Bill will show you. Bill knows. And that was a terrible decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the Titans are trying to do that. Hey, trust us. We know.
Ain't no trusting them.
And nobody trusts them.
Yeah.
Again, to me, it's simple. It's Darnold or it's Ward, and there's no other option. And I think the Titans are trying to talk themselves into another option. And I think what that's going to do is give us a horrible 2025 season. And I'm not interested in punting on the 2025 season.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a punt, though, because just because they don't trade the pick now doesn't mean they can't trade it later. Like, the pick doesn't have to be traded now. Like, this could be a deal that's done, a week before the season. You know what I mean? I think ultimately.
What do you mean?
The trading out of one.
Well, right. But at the same time, like, to me, if you don't get Darnold, then you can't trade the pick because you have to take Ward.
It also seems like you're not going to get the crazy 3 first-round picks type of trade that would make you come off of Ward. So what's it going to be?
I think they're hell-bent on getting draft picks. I think they don't care about the 2025 season.
Here's the thing. They have the 35th pick. And you know what happens? There's 50 first-round picks, right?
Sure.
There's 50 first-round. Now, of course, truly there's about 15 that are graded. But there's 50 guys.
The morning between rounds 1 and 2, teams are like, oh, God, we can get Jimmy. We didn't think we could get him, and let's trade up.
This same organization traded up to get Levis. You know what I mean? So, yeah, absolutely. That 35th pick is you could move down. And here's the thing. You could move down to like 40, 45. You know what I mean? And acquire another top 100 pick possibly. And now you're looking at, okay, you could get your safety. You could get a receiver. You could get, Ursary if he's there. Like, there's right tackle. Like, there's different options that you could get.
Okay. It is September 9th or September 16th or whatever. The Titans are in Everbank Field in Jacksonville, which I don't even think it's called that anymore. Who is taking the snap week 1? Sam Darnold, Cam Ward, or the mystery box?
I think it's Cam Ward. Because why would Darnold sign for $30 million per?
No, you have to pay. You have to pay the suck tax for Darnold. If you want to pay what everybody else will pay, he'll go back to Minnesota. If you want Darnold, you have to pay the suck tax to get Sam Darnold on your team.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's Cam.
I think it's the mystery box.
The mystery box.
And I think it's going to be a disaster. All right, get your questions in for TD. 615-737-1025. That's 615-737-1025. If it's not Cam, is it mystery box or Darnold?
I'm going mystery box.
Oh, God. 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones next. Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game. TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. This is the segment where we hit your phones. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go to the phones?
Nah, to the phone.
Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Our guy, Titans in Truth, Chris, is going to kick us off here. Chris, go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen. How's everything going?
What's going on?
TD, my great mentor. I need to pick your mind because, Jared, first of all, do not go with Sam Darnold, because if you do, you will have buyer's remorse. I guarantee it. What Sam Darnold are you going to get? The Viking Sam Darnold, or is he going to get $20, $30, $40 million and go right back to being Jet Sam Darnold? Ooh, I see ghosts. I would go with Cam. I go with Cam at 1, or you trade back. And here's a crazy thought. Maybe Shador isn't as bad of a thought, because, I mean, he'll be a fit. He fits better. Ward is the better quarterback. Or you take a Carter and still get some picks, but no to Sam Darnold. That scares me to death.
I get it.
Thank you, Chris.
There should be concern. And I don't think there's concern about him being a bad quarterback. I think there's concern about him not being a $45 to $50 million quarterback. And him at that money, it hampers your organization. That's all I could say, man.
I just think that's the going rate.
Again, just because it's the going rate doesn't mean I'm going to pay it. Like, I'll do without and figure out another way. Like, you know what I mean? You don't always need a brand new car. Sometimes you get the used one that looks good, too.
So I thought about this. How many games do you think the Titans win if you swap Will Levis out for Sam Darnold? They win the Bears game, right? They win the Jets game.
I think they win 3 or 4 more games.
They win the Bears game. They win the Jets game. Levis rolls the ball on the ground. I mean, I have to think they win both Jacksonville games if Darnold's the quarterback. Indy, Levis threw for 95 yards and then claimed his shoulder was hurting after the game. They lost by 3. I mean, right then and there, we're talking about, a 7-8 win team, and that's before we get into the Minnesota game.
But here's the deal. Let's say you are a 7 or 8 win team, and this is my point exactly. Let's say you are a 7 or 8 win team. Now, where are you in terms of being able to put yourself in position to better yourself in the future?
Well, but it's like I told Derek, just because you take Sam Darnold, you sign Sam Darnold, doesn't mean that you're done right there building your team.
It doesn't mean you're done, but it limits your resources.
But now I can trade away the first pick, and I can see. I'd like to trade it twice. I'd like to trade it to 3, and then before the draft, and then on draft night, I'd like to trade it to like 7 or 8 or something like that.
You think you're in the movie, man?
And then I'm taking Matthew Golden. And then I got Sam Darnold, Matthew Golden, Calvin Ridley, and I'm gonna run the crap out of Tony Pollard.
Run the crap out of Tony Pollard. And you got Chig too, man. I think Chig is all right, man.
You'd have Chig.
Chig
Jody
had a good end of the year.
Jody is up next on the program. Jody, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
All right, appreciate it. I just want to know really how bad all this injury stuff for Abdul Carter is going to hurt his draft status, because I would really hate to lose out on such good defensive talent, but I also understand why. And I just want to hang up and listen to your answer. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you for the call.
That's a good point. And I think the main thing is determining, okay, is this something that he played with throughout the year, or is this something that happened in training? And it's obviously next to impossible to do that. That's why, like, I say he shouldn't work out at his pro day, because if I'm him, I'm not trying to put any extra stress on that fracture, right, to possibly make it worse, because the best thing for that is rest. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you need to show that you could perform under this circumstance. I feel like he's put enough out there film-wise to where you know what you're getting. You that's it. But at the same time, there is concern, and I keep saying it over and over again. Brent Callaway and Exos, they're in Plano, Texas. That's where he's training, right? So if anybody's going to know what's up with Abdul Carter, it's going to be Brent. He and Zach Woodfin are close friends. So there's going to be a pretty good exchange of information.
So I think when it comes to his draft stock and how the foot injury affects him, it depends on who the general manager is.
Yeah.
Because, again, if the GM, Floyd Reese, was the GM, Abdul Carter would be pretty close to off the board. If John Robinson was the general manager who took Caleb Farley, who had back surgery the week before the draft, he probably is on the board. You know, it's
and feet are something that, like, any sport, like, it's played on your feet. So that's something you can't really mess with. You know what I mean? So there obviously is going to be some concern.
Somebody's going to take him high because someone's not going to care. But there is probably going to be some general managers that are like,
yeah.
One texter says, hypothetical for TD. Titans trade out of the first pick with the Raiders. They pick Cam Ward. As most everyone is saying, he is the consensus quarterback in the class. So the Titans have a chance to get Shedeur Sanders with the 7th pick, or will he be gone before then, in your opinion?
I think he's going to be gone. So the Titans would trade out, right? So they go
1 to
down
7.
So that's one team that takes a quarterback because you're not moving up to 1 to do anything with take quarterback. Then you got the Giants and the Browns. One of them is going to take a quarterback. So no.
I mean, the way I feel is I'm actually wondering more if Jackson Dart ends up being QB2.
I'd be very surprised.
One texter says, TD, do you think it's odd they are bringing the top 4 prospects in so quickly? Nope. Do you think it's tied to the trade down and maybe that they could do something with a team before free agency opens?
No. And I know from talking to Borgonzi, even to Callahan, these guys are very big on these in-person meetings. They're huge to them, right? So if you could get 2 of those in the case of Shedeur, 3, I would want to do that before free agency starts. And that's really all they're doing. They're getting as much information, and they categorize it as data points. And this is another checkpoint for them to gather as much data as possible as they roll into free agency, because I believe that there are some quarterbacks in play that they're going to consider. And so getting another bit of information is actually the smart thing to do. I don't think it means that they're rushing anything. They're just trying to get as much as possible. And I mean, I believe Travis Hunter, I think, is going to be towards the end of this month because of a scheduling issue. Originally, they were trying to get all 4 of those guys in, end of this week, early next week.
I believe the Titans are doing this more for show than anything else. I think they know what they want to do with the pick. Like whether it's take Cam Ward, whether it's trade the pick off of Cam Ward, I think they know what they want to do. And so I think they're doing this because they can put out there, hey, we sat down with Cam. He blew us away.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they're going to take Shedeur. So I think, it's more for show to bring Shedeur to say, hey, we're bringing the 4 big ones in here, the 4 big prospects in here. And because they're not bringing in the tackle out of Missouri. They're not bringing in the receiver out of Arizona. They're not bringing in the other guys that could be a part of the equation. They may bring those
in gradually.
They will, but they're not bringing them in now while they have number 1 because they want everyone to think that they're going to use the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Chad says, I keep coming back to this. Personally, I'd rather miss on a quarterback with a mid-level contract than miss on a quarterback with the number 1 pick. I value the pick more than the money. TD, how do you see it and how do teams see it?
He said a mid-level contract?
Well, I mean, $40 million for a quarterback is a mid-level contract. You're talking about the 17th, 18th highest paid quarterback in the league at $40 million.
So here's the thing. It's a tough call.
What do you think the Broncos missed more? The picks they gave up for Russell or the money they gave Russell?
I think it's the picks.
I agree.
But see, it depends on what perspective you're looking on, right? If you're looking from the owner's perspective, they're gone, man. I'd have wasted $80 million. But if you're looking at just overall, I think the picks, yeah, for sure.
Well, and like in the case of L'Jarius Sneed, I think the money's a bigger problem than the pick is, even though I think they wish they had that pick back. But we're talking about
the first pick.
I know it's a good pick too. But we're talking about the number 1 pick in the draft.
Can't mess that up.
The way I'd say is this: if they were to sign Sam Darnold and he were to be a pumpkin, they could essentially get out of that after year 2 or after really year 1 from the standpoint that, okay, well, Darnold sucked. We won 4 games and now we have the first pick. So now we take a quarterback and we have the Giants' first pick. So now we take a quarterback and that quarterback starts and Sam sits on the bench and then we release him.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And that's a really good point that Chad made. And I didn't even think of it from that perspective. You're right. I just feel like if I had to pick out of the 2 situations, I'm taking Cam. at 1.
Mike from PA says, what's one free agent TD thinks we should get? And I'm just going to ask you, since we're at the end, kind of what are your just thoughts of what's going to happen when free agency opens Monday?
Morgan Moses. I think it's time to go. The last 2
We've been
free
talking
agent
about it for 3
cycles,
years.
So, it's time to go ahead and make it happen. And I think there's going to be some interest there. So he's the first one that comes to mind. I was going to say Christian Kirk, but the Texans went and got him. So, I would say Morgan Moses.
I think what we're going to see is the Titans probably make like 3 big impact signings. I think one of them is going to be Nick Bolton. I just think that Borgonzi's a Kansas City guy, and he's going to want his Kansas City guy. I wouldn't pay Nick Bolton all that money, but I think he's going to.
He's Kenneth Murray. Like, they're basically the same player.
I know, but he's not. Borgonzi wants his guys, and we want the winners, and we want so they're going to sign Nick Bolton, and I think they're going to sign one of these tackles. Might be Morgan Moses, might be Dan Moore, might be, they're going to sign a tackle, and then I think they're going to crop dust it, like 20 guys that are all signing for like $2.5 million each. On like the third week of free agency.
I'm curious if they go after Charles Omenihu.
Kansas City ties.
Yeah. He's a good player.
But
too.
isn't he kind of a bad guy off the field? He's always suspended, isn't he?
He's had some injuries though.
I feel like he's been suspended. Like,
don't believe so.
Maybe like hit and run or.
This
reminds me of Jackrabbit Jenkins when the Titans signed him. Like, isn't Jackrabbit a bad guy?
No.
And we were reading like Jackrabbit, like there was a guy that was found dead at his house.
No, I knew about Jackrabbit. I knew about him like from before the draft.
I was like, and some guy.
That's why I got kicked out of Florida and ended up in South Alabama.
And didn't Jackrabbit say he was the guy that said that if Coach Meyer was still the coach here, I'd still be at Florida? It was like, damn. But then I felt bad because I read the guy's entire Wikipedia page right there on the air, and they're like, man, he just got here. You're reading off his rap sheet. TD, good to see you as always.
Good to be seen, man.
Coming up next, I've had a concern about Chad Brinker for a long, long time, and it hit me yesterday. We'll get to it next. Someone to come to you. Want to do after the game? Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, Bridgestone Arena tonight. Preds and Kraken tonight at 7 o'clock. Max will have the pregame show in less than an hour, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Ian, I had an epiphany yesterday.
Fun.
In fact, I think you're the only person on the planet, well, and TD, because I just told him. I think you two are the only people on the planet that are aware of this epiphany I had. But if this Sam Darnold saga proves to be true, Paul Kaharski saying they're not interested unless it's at their price. Today, PK on this podcast said a 1 or 2 year deal if the price lowers. Sure. TD said, hey, they'll do the 30 million, but the 40 million, that's where we get. There's something I claimed last year that everybody assumes is not true, that it hit me yesterday. And it's that Chad Brinker doesn't know football. It hit me. Last year, I kept saying, these guys, they don't know football. And everyone's like, what do you mean they don't know football? I'm like, they don't know ball. And that included Brinker. And then I thought maybe there's a chance that Brinker knows. Now, if this is true with Sam Darnold, and I know Chad went to business school and all of that, but there are a lot of people out there that went to business school. My best buddy, one of my best buddies, Scott Fischel, has an MBA from Vanderbilt's renowned Owen School of Business. And as much as I love him, Scott Fischel does not know how to run a football team. And I am in a group chat with him where he talks about all the things the Titans should do. And I can say it would truly be an unmitigated disaster if he did run a football team. This team has no starting quarterback. And yet at the same time, they've decided they need picks to draft, develop, and retain. They've talked about a fantasy of having 12 picks in the top 30, or excuse me, in the top 100 over the next 3 drafts. But the only way to get more picks is to trade the one you have. And there's one legitimate quarterback on the market, one legitimate starting quarterback. One. Is he perfect? No. Is he elite? No. I believe that mic is on over there, Max. Is he elite? No. But he's 18-6 over the last 3 seasons. By the way, guess what? Sam Darnold's won 18 games over the last 3 years. The Titans have won 16 over the same 3-year period. He threw for 4,300 yards last year. The Titans have never had a quarterback in Tennessee throw for over 4,000 yards. He's been a team captain in 3 places, and the Titans have no veteran leaders. And yet they'll only take Sam Darnold at $30 million. We won't pay $1 more. $40 million is not the going rate for a tier 2 quarterback. $55 million is the going rate for a tier 2 quarterback. Dak Prescott is $60 million. Jordan Love is $55. Trevor Lawrence is $55. Jared Goff is $55. Tua is $53. It's the going rate, and I'm asking to pay 75% of that, which takes me back to Brinker. I forgot. He's Mr. Moneyball. He's Mr. MBA. He's Mr. AI cancer curing analytics model. Remember when he did the Titans official podcast, and he said he was asked about how much he loved the book Moneyball? Ian, play the cut.
There was a great piece that a guy put out about you a few weeks ago in The Athletic. And he put a piece in there that said the book Moneyball is what changed everything for you. Is that true?
That is true, yeah. So I was in NFL Europe. I was an undrafted free agent that in 2003 with the New York Jets. Terry Bradway was the general manager at the time. Herman was the head coach. And they brought me in, didn't make the team. And then later in the season, they re-signed me and then allocated me to NFL Europe. And while playing in Europe, I ended up getting injured and put on IR. And at the time, they sent all the players who were on injured reserve to Birmingham, Alabama, which Health South. That's where Health South was, and that's where we went when we were on injured reserve. And Rochelle, my wife, was with me, and we were in this hotel, and I'm just bored out of my mind. And, I'm a big reader as is. And so we went to the bookstore, and that's right around the time Moneyball came out. pretty close to it at least. And, I bought it and I devoured that book in like 2 days. And I think people think it was about on base percentage, but it was about market efficiencies. I mean, I was just really just blown away.
Oh, Mr. Moneyball. That's it. By the way, it should be noted that the Oakland A's have not won a championship since they've implemented the Moneyball policies. And it should also be noted in Moneyball, they had 3 great pitchers. That'd be like having a great quarterback. Again, they have to win the deal. That's I for some reason, Mr. MBA, Mr. AI cancer curing model, Mr. Moneyball, it all just escaped me for a little bit because I actually thought maybe these guys knew ball. They have to get Sam Darnold on their terms. It has to be a deal. They have to win the deal. 30 million, we win. 40 million, nope, not good enough. Let me ask this question. Who cares if you get your quarterback on a good deal or not? It's not like you'll get him on a $5 million contract, so you'll save $35 million. We're talking about the difference of $10 million. Today, D-Mace told me he'd give Sam Darnold $37 million. I said, you won't give him 40? He said, nope, I'll give him 37. So you over $3 million you would give him, but you won't. Give me a break. They're paying Amani Hooker $8 million. But I guess I didn't go to business school. I went to the Floyd Reese Football School every day from 1 to 6 p.m. And during the football season from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. every Sunday for 5 years. Ian went to the Floyd Reese Football School too. And I am telling you, when it comes to a quarterback, a starting NFL quarterback, God only made so many. And you can nickel and dime places in your football team, but you can't do it at quarterback. I'll never forget the day Russell Wilson signed a massive contract. And Floyd said to me, yeah, Russell's really not that big of a deal to what they do. I said, really? He said, no. He said, it's more about Marshawn Lynch running the football and the defense they play and the guys and the money they spend on defense. And I said, so why would you give Russell the contract? Wouldn't you just give everybody else the money? He said, oh, no. You have to have a quarterback. You get your quarterback and you go from there. Once you have a quarterback, then you can position your chessboard however you'd like. Move your picks however you'd like. Move up, move down. You're going to win at least 8 or 9 games with Sam Darnold as your quarterback before you make any other moves. You'll get a shot to compete pretty much every week if he's the quarterback. But nope. We got to win the deal because Moneyball said we got to win the deal because the NBA talked about business and marketing efficiencies. But that's not how you build a football team. That's not how you do it. Like, you got a deal with your last quarterback. Remember? We won the deal because Will Levis was projected to be a first-round pick, but you got him for a second-round pick. We're paying our quarterback less than everybody else is paying their quarterback. Boy, you showed them right to the bottom of the league. So it hit me yesterday when, again, PK's talking about they want to move out of the first pick. Here's what it'll take in order for them to do it. They want Sam Darnold on their terms, but not on Sam's term, not on $40 million. When, again, the going rate for what Sam does is $55 million. They won't even pay $40. Oh, yes. Moneyball. We got to win the deal. We got to show we're smarter than everybody else. The Eagles don't do that. The Eagles are overpaying Jalen Hurts. They're overpaying their players. Nobody sits there and says, hey, the Eagles are paying both tackles. How about that? Both receivers. Remember, you had to win the deal with A.J. Brown. We'll do 20. We won't do 22. Well, good luck trying to win the deal. I'll build a good football team. You go try to win the deal. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And then the biggest thing that pisses me off about this idea that, hey, we only take Sam Darnold. We don't have a quarterback. Sam just won 14 games as a starter. He's won 18 games over the last 3 years, including a year he didn't play, which is more games than we've won over the last 3 years. But we'll only take him on our terms, and we'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
So I've talked to a number of people across the league as well as agents who have skin in the game at the quarterback position, just trying to figure out how the slotting is going to go. And, you know, Darnold's really the prominent conversation right now. And I'm just telling you, the feel is that his market is going to be softer than anybody thought. And the idea of him returning to Minnesota, I mean, that might be the odds-on favorite right now for him to get a short-term deal done with the Vikings. Now,
there you go. That is Charles Robinson, and I heard that this morning on Robbie and Joe, and I could not believe it. And so the other thing, and I told you again, the Titans have said, according to PK and TD, that they're not interested in Sam Darnold at $40 million, but they'd be interested in Sam Darnold on their terms. So think more like $30 million. And PK said on his podcast today that they'd be interested in more of a 1 or 2 year deal than they would be in a 3 or a 4 year deal, which, by the way, is all semantics, because all of these contracts you can get out of after the first or second year. So even if they sign Darnold to a 4-year deal, they could get out of it after 2. This is the NFL. This is not hockey, baseball, basketball, where a 4-year deal is a 4-year deal. But the other thing that just truly pisses me off when it comes to this, oh, no. We want Sam Darnold on our terms, but not, the market, not below market value for him, is this idea that the Titans can sit back and say, we'll pay $30 million and not a dollar more. And that leads a guy like Charles to say that's why people think it's probably more likely that he goes back to Minnesota. You have to pay him more than Minnesota because you suck. It's the tax. You're the worst team in the entire NFL. There is no hope with this franchise right now. You have a terrible owner, a powerless head coach who's on the hot seat with no experience and no skins on the wall. You have one 30-year-old wide receiver, no number 2 tight end, no right tackle, and one star player who never produces consistently but pretends he's Warren Sapp. You have to overpay Sam Darnold. Think about the options. Sam Darnold has, let's say everybody would be interested in a 1-year deal at $30 million. So he's going to choose here over Pete Carroll, Brock Bowers, Max Crosby, and Vegas. Why would he do that? If you're the Titans, again, there's one quarterback who's available in the free agent market. He's a tier 2 quarterback, and it's Sam Darnold. There's one guy. Nobody else. Everybody else is either old and washed up or they stink like Daniel Jones. These quarterbacks, according to the gurus, do not project as tier 1 quarterbacks. So if you want to get the one guy out there, you have to pay him. Why would Sam Darnold come here over Pete Carroll, Brock Bowers, Max Crosby, and Vegas? The money. Why would he want to come here over Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Kevin O'Connell, and the Pro Bowl left tackle? The money. If you want players, you have to overpay. Now, if you just want schmoes that can fill the line, then you can wait until the 4th week of free agency and pay Quandre Diggs $3 million. And that's fine. And they're going to need to do that for about 10 different spots. But you don't do that for quarterback, not unless there's 6 quarterbacks out there. But there's one quarterback that's out there. See, Robert Kraft doesn't seem to understand this either. He doesn't get why nobody wants to go to New England. It's like, we used to have guys that wanted to line up and play here for us for years and would take less money, and now we can't even get Calvin Ridley. It's a terrible team, a terrible city to live in, and they don't pay anybody any money. When you had Tom Brady, it was a little different, but guess what? Tom Brady ain't there anymore. You have to pay the suck tax. And again, I'm not saying make Sam Darnold the highest paid quarterback in the league, but you have to show him the respect of, hey, man, we're paying you real money to play quarterback. Again, I'm asking for less money than Kyler freaking Murray is getting. They had to put a clause in his contract that he'd stop playing video games. And I'm asking for less. Like, is that too much to ask? Well, we'd like a 1-year deal. So would everybody. It's not how it works. You have to pay. Again, what's crazy is if all these rumors about Sam Darnold are true, then at 12:01 on Monday, I'd have a starting quarterback who won 14 games last year, and you guys would have Will Levis. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. T is up next here on our program. T, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good.
All right, man, look here. I feel it. I hear your passion in your voice by Sam Donald. You know, I'm gonna put it like the Ryan Tannehill situation. Yeah, Ryan did his thing down at Miami before he came to the Titans, but then also Ryan also had some downtime. Then he came to the Titans and found some rejuvenation. With Sam, look what he did with New York. Then to go to where he at with all these key players. You know, you could have put Marcus Mariota there. My God, you could have put Malik Willis there.
That's not
and
true.
You would have hit.
That is
And
not
you would
true.
have hit. That's
T,
my opinion.
they were 7-10 the year before.
I listen to your opinion. Please listen to mine.
No. T, you just made a comment that's not true.
Because if Sam Darnold was so much truthful like that,
T, respond to my comment. This is my show. You tell me why they were 7-10.
Minnesota would never disrespect that man. Would try to get that man a short-term contract. They would immediately lock him up right then and there. So
if you can win with Malik Willis as the quarterback there, then why were they 7-10? Ian, cut him off. This is my show. You make a point like that of they could win all these games with Marcus Mariota. They could win all these games with Malik Willis. Then why didn't they win them the year before? They won 14 games last year, folks. They won 7 with Kirk Cousins going 4-4 and Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and Jaron Hall. 7 games. Everybody keeps telling me this. Oh my God, the only reason they were any good was because of Kevin O'Connell. The only reason they were any good was because of Justin Jefferson. Well, they had Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell the year before. It didn't help much, did it? And again, the reason why he wouldn't answer the question is because he was sitting there and he was saying, like, he knows there's no answer to that. Darnold is good, folks. Again, he did not start in 2023. He was the backup in San Francisco. In the last 3 years, he's won 18 games as a starting quarterback. The Titans as a team have won 16. But you guys are the ones that can sit on your high horse and say, I'm not paying $1 more than 30. It's ridiculous. One texter says, what happened to you thinking Mac Jones was the next year's Sam Darnold? I did the research, and plus I'd rather just have Sam Darnold. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, and let's give something away. I was mad at that caller, though. Again, just answer the question. Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025, and you will be going to see Stained at Bridgestone Arena. Very, very exciting. Let me pull up all the details on that. You'll see Stained and Breaking Benjamin at Bridgestone Arena on Sunday, April 27th. Good luck with that. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Hiller's taking great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. No one wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency. Nobody does. So most of the time, you don't know what it'll cost or if it'll get fixed right. But when you use Hiller, and I use Hiller at my home, they do take great care of it. Their experts will solve your problems quickly. And again, I know this because I use Hiller at my home. The price you're told is the price you'll actually pay with no hidden fees or surprises on your bill. Do what I do and book online at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call that fish truck today. Stillman and Company, we are live at Bridgestone Arena where the great sell-off of 2025 is underway. Preds making moves last night. Tommy Novak out, Luke Shin out, and some guy I've never heard of, Michael Bunting, is in. Hal Gill is in with us, Predators radio
Big
analyst.
hockey fan, are you?
Michael Bunting, the guy's never had more than 63 points in a season. Hal, I'm only responsible for knowing the good players.
He's never 63 points in a season. Pretty good.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Gus Nyquist had like 70 last year.
And Gus is pretty good.
I only need to know the good players. And if I don't know who a player is, he probably sucks. And this guy, I don't know, and I think he probably sucks. But I'm cool with it because they got rid of two guys who suck.
Do I have to sit here and listen to this?
Well, I think they got rid of two guys
my
who suck
God.
for one guy who sucks.
You know, I knew
like
this was
it.
going to be a hard interview, but this is ridiculous. That's a bad start.
Okay, so
if
let's
you have
start.
a question for me, you can ask me a question.
Do you have a problem with the purge?
No, you lose and things change. You know, how it's done and how it's handled, that can be massaged and should be done the right way. But I mean, you gotta move pieces when you're not winning. You know, it's just the nature of the game.
So here's the way I look at it. I am actually shockingly a little optimistic about the future of the Predators because I feel like over the 10 years that I've been covering the team, they've never bottomed out. They've tried everything. They've been, I think we can agree, like average of the last 10 years has been a first round playoff team.
Yeah, they've been on a good run, and this is really the first time they're it's not good.
Like they had the playoff run where Pekka Rinne turned into Martin Brodeur, but outside of that, it's been pretty much first round, the second round here or there, but they're now going, if things continue along this path, to be able to get, there are 3 players in this draft, 2 of them are centers. They're probably going to be able to get one of these guys if the ping pong balls fall their way, which is no guarantee, but I think they need that young guy.
Yep.
I think they come back with a lot of the veteran players they have this year, and they'll have the cap space to fill a couple of spots here and there in free agency. They got a boatload of trade picks. Molendyk will be in the roster next year. He'll be in the mix. I would assume Kimmel will be in the mix next year. Svechkov's already in the mix. Like there's a nice little mix. They'll put the second overall pick probably in the lineup. I actually feel like next year I have hope. And I don't really feel that optimism from anybody else.
Well, there's a lot of work to get to that point. I think there's a lot that needs to shake out. And, you know, we're watching as Barry Trotz tries to manage and makes the first few steps to try to solve issues that he sees and try to move pieces that he sees. And so we're going to have to sit and wait. Unfortunately, we're not in those meetings. We can't say, okay, you're clearing cap space for this, or do you want to play this angle, or, who do you think is part of the future? And so there's a lot that has to shake out. But yeah, I mean, hey, look at that team in Boston that went out and smoked the Bruins. They were good. They made plays. We know that this team can go make plays. We know that Stamkos is awesome. We know O'Reilly's awesome. We know Phil is awesome. They got to play awesome, though, and they have to play awesome consistently. And then you got to give them pieces and complement them and give them other players that are going to grow into those awesome players. So, and I think there's good depth. There's, the guys you listed that can pop and can be those players down the road, but you got to bring them all together and you got to figure out where all the spots get filled.
So I do think a part of this is going to be changing the coach. And I think this because even though everybody seems to have had a bad season this year, I know these guys aren't bad. Like I know Stamkos is not bad. I watched Brady Shea in that Carolina playoff series a couple of years ago. Like I know Brady Shea is not a bad player.
Right.
So I am expecting that even if these guys play to their median abilities next year, that this team will be significantly better.
Yeah.
Because of that, I don't know, you played when you were older. Do you think that that's realistic to expect out of Stamkos, Marchessault, Forsberg, Shea, Yossi, Soros, the guys that we know are going to be on the team next year that are on the team now? Or is that wishful thinking on my part?
No, I think there's a lot. Again, there's more that needs to go into that. You need a GM that believes in the coach and the way he wants to play, and then gives him players that are willing to play that way. And does that make them better? do these players play better in that system, or do you need to retool and rethink it? Are these players the right guys for Bruno? Is Bruno the right guy for them? There's a lot that goes into that. And so
Can I tell you that I think the answer is no?
You can tell me whatever you want.
And I think that's what this year has proven, that Burnett's not a bad coach, but that he might not be the right coach for these guys.
Well, whatever they did this year didn't work. So someone's got to change, whether that's the players got to change and they have to buy into the system, or the system needs to change with the coach, assuming the coach is giving them the system. Something needs to change because it didn't work this year. And so now you have to tinker with it. And it comes down to personnel and belief in what they're doing and doing it together. And so that's, three facets that it's not, I made it sound like, oh, you just do that. Well, if it was that easy, everyone would do it and you just churn out Stanley Cups, but it's not that easy. You have to tinker with things, and you have to, I think Barry Trotz thought these guys are going to be awesome in this system with this coach, and it didn't work out that way. So now you have to, fade 10, punt it and rethink it.
If you were on this team, how would you react to the fact that, there were a lot of deals that were signed this offseason that Barry has already kind of put his hand in the air and said, hey, my bad. Carrier, Wedgwood, Novak was signed this time last year. He's out. There have been a lot of moves that, hey, this was our plan going into the year. They re-signed Fabro to a one-year deal, waived him. How much of that would you look at and say, well, hold on, wait a minute. When I got here, this was our plan, and now what's going on? We just signed some of these guys. How would you feel as a player?
I think you have to look at it again from both sides, right? This player didn't live up to what I thought he was going to do. And then as a player, like, I didn't step up and do what I was supposed to do. And so I have the player view where, it's not just magically, I'm going to go somewhere else and it's going to work. You have to take ownership in that. And I think, when Gus Nyquist was traded, you could see those guys. It hurts when you lose a teammate, when, you say that was my failure, because you're part of that. And so I think has to be an honest self-assessment with the players, with the coach, with the GM. Everyone has to say, because not every deal works out and not every player fits in a system, but it's your job to make it work. And so, that's the disappointing part. And that's why this time of year is the worst. And we're seeing it right now. And no one wants to lose Gus, and no one wants to lose Novi and Schenner, all great guys. And, you have to let guys go, and it's the worst. And so, but they also have to take ownership in that.
I do have a specific defense question for you, because right now I'm kind of penciling in my head what it'll look like next year. This year there's so many injuries, and they're just getting by.
Yeah.
So Yossi, Shea, and Mullendijk, I think, are going to be three of the defensemen that are on the team next year. They had high hopes for Stastny this year. He misses the beginning of the year. I don't know where they feel about him. Barry seems to really like Wilsby, but he got hurt. Let's put Lazan in there. That's 4. What do you see them needing to fill out that defense so it can be more consistent than it has been this year? Because it's been a train wreck this season.
Well, that's you can't have 6 top 2 defense. It just doesn't work that way. You have to have, checks and balances. And I think you need a young guy to come in. If Mullendijk can come in, and everyone thinks he's going to be something special, if he can come in, well, then you have a little bit more money to spend on a 3-4 or a 5-6. And so then you can up that, but you need, you can't just go sign 6 awesome $7 million, $8 million players and have them play your back end, because then you're thin up front, and you have to balance that. And so I think you need to get those guys. Is Gibson another guy? There's other guys that they want to bring in, and it doesn't mean Stastny, took time off and came back, and he's not quite the player progressing the way we thought he would, but that's okay. He can take a step back, but you have to make a decision. Is that guy going to be part of the future? And do we buy into what hey, he's a great skater. Can he figure out all the rest, all the bits and pieces, and put it together? And is he our guy? Or is it another one? Because don't forget, you're also dealing with roster spots. There's only so much room for these guys. So you can't bring 10 guys on and just roll them through until someone wows you. You have to pick and choose who you're going to have. And Milwaukee's got to be developing all these other guys in the meantime, so that you're trying to hit the stride, right at the right time, which is, okay, we're a playoff team, and now these guys are hitting, and if Molendyke comes in and wows us, he's going to have setbacks, but if he can hit when you're going into the playoffs and then really wow you and give you something good, then that takes you over the top. And that's the hard part is finding those veterans that you can count on. And we've seen this year, you can't count on every veteran being awesome. It just doesn't. There's going to be ups and downs. And so you got to time it all at the right time, and you got to believe in your personnel. I mean, that's the biggest thing is you got to believe in a guy and give him a chance to do it. How long does that belief go? Right? How many years can you wait around for a guy to pop? That's the question.
Last one for you. When it comes to the deadline tomorrow, do you feel like we're going to have Barry on at 3:00 tomorrow? Do you think that we'll have clarity about kind of the lessons this team has learned over the last 8 months, year, whatever it may be? And what's the big lesson that you've learned over the last 6 months or year?
I think that's a question, and 3:00, Barry will hopefully answer that, because hey, if we knew what the problem was and had clarity on it, we wouldn't have been in this position. We would have fixed it a long time ago. And so I think Barry's got a vision and he's trying to execute it as best he can. And then he's going to tell you the vision moving forward. I can tell you, it started off, I think the first part of the season, they missed the net way too much. They did little things that cost them confidence, and they didn't get the scoring that they were looking for in the first 5 games, and they were at home, and their families were around. It was a tough, weird start to a season. They didn't travel. They didn't bond as a team. They didn't get that confidence that you need to win games, and they never were really able to sustain any bit of confidence. They had a 6-game win streak that they looked, okay, maybe they're turning around, and then that fizzled out. And so they don't have that sustained confidence and belief in each other. And so that's what I would address first is, how do we fix that? Is it training camp? Is it something leading up to that? Or is it personnel and the system and the way we play? There's all those things that ultimately Barry Trotz has come in and he's in charge of that. And so he's got to figure it out, and he's going to give you a better answer than I ever could.
Hal Gill, one of the best in the business, as always.
Well,
Hal,
thanks, buddy.
great stuff. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
Yep, Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game.
It's hockey night in Smashville.
Walk over to Yossi. His one-timer, he scores!
Bringing you the keys to victory and the latest storylines surrounding the Nashville Predators. This is Predators Game Day, now on Stillman and Company.
Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson, online at tjandersonhomes.com. TJ Anderson Homes and Benchmark Realty. That's my realtor. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with my guy, TJ Anderson. Tonight, a battle of the bad. The Seattle Kraken 26-32-4, bad for 56 points, but not to be outdone by the Predators. 22-32-7, bad for 51 points. Here is why tonight is a big game. According to MoneyPuck.com, the Nashville Predators have a 9.4% chance of getting the number one pick in this year's draft. The Seattle Kraken are the ones right behind them with an 8.5% chance. The Predators, I hate to say it, need to lose. And I'm a little worried that while Barry Trotz shipped off Luke Shin and shipped off Tommy Novak, that should help. I'm a little nervous that they claim some guys off of waivers I haven't heard of who might be better than the guys that they've gotten rid of. So I am a little worried about that. That being said, I'll be watching tonight. Again, Predators Game Day presented by TJ Anderson Homes and Benchmark Realty. That's my realtor, TJ Anderson, online at tjandersonhomes.com. That's it for us. Max has the pregame show coming up next. Apparently, Robbie Stanley is going to be sitting right here in the chair that came from my old house. Stillman and Company. We will see everybody tomorrow at 2.